Chapter 1289. This one is Lu Yuan, the second manager of the city lord's estate in Jiaozhong Fortification. The level 7 mystic cultivator sighed. The city lord and his wife both passed away in this sudden disaster. At this time, a 7 or 8-year-old boy suddenly rushed out like a calf and crashed headfirst into Mo Lian and Arbor. He repeatedly complained and shrieked, "Why did you come so late? My father and mother are both dead. It's all your fault for coming so late. It's all your fault for being useless. Useless. Young sir. Lu Yuan hastily strode forward with an awkward expression and dragged over the kicking and crying boy. He apologized to Mo Lian with a wry smile. "This is the city lord's estate's young sir. Everyone, I'm truly sorry. This child suffered quite a bit of shock because of his parents' deaths." Arbor indifferently glanced at the child. Suddenly, she shook her small hand, and the pitch-black crow repeating crossbow's muzzle aimed at the 7 or 8-year-old boy. Lu Yuan jumped in fright and hastily reached out to grab the boy with his sleeve. He repeatedly retreated several steps with the boy in horror. "And no, what are you doing? This miss, why it's our young sir who spoke wildly and didn't know his place. Please spare his life on account that he's just a child. You think I want to kill him because he scolded me?" Arbor gazed indifferently at that second manager Lu Yuan. She only felt that this person was very laughable. Although she wasn't a good person, she wasn't so narrow-minded. There was only one reason for her to take action: this child has been infected. Look at his eyes. Based on the extent of his mutation, he'll completely lose his rationality in less than 16 hours. As soon as she said this, the crowd instantly fell silent. Everyone silently retreated in unison, their eyes suffused with traces of horror. The second manager of the city lord's estate, Lu Yuan, also unwittingly loosened his grip. Then, as if he thought of something, he hugged the child and repeatedly shook his head at Arbor. No, it can't be like this. This miss, you must have seen wrongly, right? You're lying to yourself." Arbor's crow repeating crossbow was ready to fire. He frowned and said, "Get out of the way. Don't be soft-hearted." "No, I won't back down." The second steward, Lu Yuan, did not know what he was thinking. He only knew that deep in his heart, there was a conviction that supported him. He absolutely had to protect this orphan of the city lord's mansion. He had to protect him. "You can't protect it." Arbor's voice was cold. "Even if you keep him for a few hours now, once the time is up, he will completely mutate. There is no medicine that can cure him." "No, there's hope. Miss, since you are so resourceful, you must be able to save him, right?" Arbor shook his head helplessly. "It's hopeless. At least for now, there was nothing she could do." Everyone who was infected and mutated could only watch as he walked step by step into the abyss of death. There was no other way. No. The second steward, Lu Yuan, hugged the boy tightly and retreated step by step. But the group of refugees beside him did not let it go. Seeing that he wanted to shrink back into the crowd, everyone parted to the sides. They couldn't help but mutter, "Second steward, don't harm others. That's right, that child is hopeless. You can't harm all of us for him." Lu Yuan abruptly turned his head and glared at the crowd. Chapter 1290. Don't forget who sacrificed themselves to save so many of your lives. Don't forget who it was that helped you all stall for time so that you could escape from the city. It's the city lord and madam. They led 2,000 death warriors and fought with their lives on the line against the corpse puppets. That's why all of you were able to escape from the city and save your lives. Now, you people want to repay kindness with enmity and send the only orphan of the city lord's mansion to his death. His powerful words made everyone look at each other in dismay. Some people instantly felt a sense of shame in their hearts. However, The young lady said that the young master will mutate in 16 hours. You believe what others say. Lu Yuan said angrily, if we watch the young master get killed today, are we still human? Arbor tilted his head and his cold gaze landed on the second manager. Even if you get bitten by him and get infected, you don't care. Lu Yuan held the little boy's shoulders tightly and swallowed his saliva. No, I don't care. Xiao Mu's gaze followed this person's face before sizing him up from head to toe. You seem a bit strange. What do you mean strange? You have ulterior motives towards him. Arbor looked at the manager coldly. The second manager shuddered. Under the pressure of that gaze, his legs went soft and he almost fell to the ground. Arbor glanced at him but didn't say anything. He put away the crow-repeating crossbow and pulled Mo Lian's hand. Let's go. Ah, this young lady, may I ask, what do we do? Didn't you want to go to the Rice City fortifications? Arbor glanced at them indifferently. Continue. A few grumbles came from the crowd. Didn't you come to save us? Why didn't you arrange for us to go to the Rice City fortifications? That's right, that's right. If we go to Rice City's fortifications, we definitely won't be able to enter their gates. We'll have to wait for a period of inspection. Wouldn't that mean that we'll be starving outside the city for a few days? Mo Lian glanced at them with a half-smile. Isn't this a normal procedure? Just do as I say. It won't take up much of your time. Right now, shouldn't you all be rejoicing that you were able to escape? Liang Qingqing sneered. She crossed her arms and looked at the burly men who were chattering away. A bunch of grown men, chattering like women. If you have so much energy, you should kill a few more zombies. Don't always think about asking others for selfless help. It's as if the whole world is your mother. We don't owe you anything. Hilarious. Everyone had risked their lives to rush to Jiaozhong Defense Base, and the rewards weren't necessarily that great. Let's go. Everyone followed after Mo Lian and the others in Arbor. For some reason, the little boy in Lu Yuan's arms had been glaring at Xiao Mu with a hateful gaze. When Arbor walked past them, the little boy jumped up. That boy actually jumped up and pounced on Xiao Mu like a crazed tiger cub, opening his mouth to bite her arm. You're looking to die. Mo Lian jumped in fright. She didn't expect the little boy to have such a strong desire for revenge. Chapter 1291. Earlier, Jojo merely aimed the crow-repeating crossbow at him for a short while. That child actually remembered this kind of hatred in his heart and waited for an opportunity to act, immediately wanting to take revenge. It was extremely rare to see such a vengeful child. Mo Lian kicked over, causing that boy to somersault and fall to the ground. However, although his kick looked heavy, he actually held back. After all, he didn't really want to bicker with a brat. However, the child's vicious actions just now had really angered him. Even if the child had come for him, he could have just laughed it off. But if the child had come for his Xiao Xiao and even wanted to bite her, causing her to be infected as well, that was absolutely not allowed. You brat, you've grown gutsy. Little young sir. Lu Yuan hastily lunged forward to protect his body and blocked Duan Yu's kick. Don't. Young sir and miss, please don't be angry. Little young sir only did this in a moment of anger. He's still young, so he doesn't know anything. Don't bicker with him, I beg everyone. Don't beg them. The boy scowled as he viciously glared at Arbor's group, his eyes faintly glowing red. Didn't she say that I don't have long to live? I'm going to bite her to death and bury this woman with me. The boy angrily kicked his legs but couldn't break free from Lu Yuan's embrace. Lu Yuan found a sturdy rope and tied that boy up. Only then did he wipe his sweat and smile apologetically at Arbor. Sorry, Mississippi little young sir's parents' death greatly agitated him, so he did such an offensive action. Arbor glanced at that boy and shook his head with a sigh. He tugged at Mo Lien's sleeve and quietly said, "Don't worry about it, let's go." Everyone then quickly walked past them and hurried to their destination, Jiaozhong Base. Duan Yu glanced behind them, his gaze aloofly fixed on Lu Yuan. This person is a bit strange. He is. If normal people learned that the people around them had mutated, they would at least be a bit fearful, if not scared to death. At the very least, they would want to distance themselves from the other party for their own safety. But this Lu Yuan that it was a strange feeling. Mo Lien sneered, "Jojo is right, this person has an ulterior motive. You think he's strange because he's the only one who's wearing an inappropriate jacket and a cotton sleeve." It was already the beginning of spring. Perhaps it was still a little cold in the morning, but at this time, it was impossible to wear a jacket. It was so hot that he was going to die. Hearing this, everyone nodded in realization. He already knew that the young master of the city lord's mansion was infected. Several people exclaimed in unison. Mo Lien nodded. That's right. He knew about it a long time ago, and he had already made all the necessary preparations. Your Highness's observation is meticulous. It is indeed so. A male disciple from Daybreak sect nodded. TSK. What is this person's goal? The one who spoke was none other than eldest Qin. This rascal had mixed in with the 100-person team. It wasn't until they set off that Mo Lien discovered he had actually fabricated a fake name to participate in this Jiaozhong base cleanup operation. Mo Lien swept him a disdainful glance. You can even make up a fake name to participate in the operation. You're so smart, yet you still don't know what the other person's goal is. Little Bao, the crown prince is scolding me. The eldest young master turned around in a huff to look at the expressionless Arbor. Chapter 1292. Serves you right. Arbor expressionlessly tossed him these two words with a stoic face. She then pattered forward with small steps. Eldest young Sir Qin's face darkened as he glared at several nearby team members who were secretly snickering. Mo Lien chuckled and quickly chased after his little wife. Jojo, walk slower. There's no rush. Arbor was rather anxious. She wanted to see the extent of the damage done to Jiaozhong fortification. How exactly did the underground organization attack the water source? The group set off on foot. Other than that superhuman with abnormal hearing who had some difficulty following the group at high speed, everyone else walked very easily. Everyone set off for Jiaozhong base. In less than 2 hours, they saw Jiaozhong fortification city gate standing not far away. More than 30 brainless zombies were wandering in front of the city gate. When they smelled people approaching, they all turned their heads and looked at Arbor's group with flickering red eyes. Everyone, be careful. These are all level 4 zombies. Arbor instructed. She moved the crow repeating crossbow in her hand, and an arrow pierced straight through the head of one of the zombies. After the arrow pierced through the first zombie, it then pierced through the head of a second zombie that was pouncing over. One arrow exploded 2 zombies. The crow gold arrow circled in the air before returning to the crow repeating crossbow with a whoosh. When the others saw this, they immediately refused to be outdone. They all flung out their mystic energy at the several dozen wandering zombies from afar. Dense white mystic energy instantly struck the zombies one by one. After evading the first wave of mystic energy, a few zombies were immediately blasted into smithereens by the second wave of mystic energy that pounced on them. This battle was basically a one-sided purge. After the 30 or so zombies at the city gate were all cleaned up by the 100 great mystic cultivators, everyone followed Mo Lien and Arbor into Jiaozhong base. More than half of the Jiaozhong fortification's gatehouse had already collapsed. Broken stones mixed with mud were piled up in a corner. As soon as he entered, he saw a woman who was missing half her head sitting at the city gate. She was hugging a child who was missing half of his body. How pitiful. A female mystic cultivator sighed and walked toward the mother and son. Don't go there. Following a stern rebuke, the woman, who had been sitting stiffly, suddenly opened one of her eyes. She let out an ear-piercing shriek and pounced at the female mystic cultivator. Whoosh! The black gold arrow pierced through the woman's head. At the same time, the female mystic cultivator also reacted extremely quickly and threw out a mystic energy. Soon after, she pounced on the child that the woman was hugging. The child was missing half of his body but had opened his eyes. Mother and son were simultaneously pierced by the black gold arrow and mystic energy. They rolled to the side and finally stopped moving. The female mystic cultivator exhaled and turned to nod at Arbor. Thank you. These corpse puppets are gradually developing intelligence, Liang Qingqing said with a cold expression. They're starting to learn how to hide or disguise themselves and wait for an opportunity to attack us. Be careful. We don't know what else is inside. Situ-Yi raised his head to look at the nearby sky with a heavy gaze. He kept feeling that there was something else within the pitch-black fog that shrouded the fortification. Chapter 1293. The group composed themselves and walked into the city. There were scorch marks everywhere. Walking on the empty street and listening to the orderly footsteps of his team, he felt a little creeped out from the bottom of his heart. This place was unreasonably quiet. It made them feel like there were many pairs of eyes quietly watching them from the shadows. Liang Qingqing suddenly turned around, and her sharp gaze vigilantly swept over the corner of the wall. There was nothing there. But she clearly felt like she was being watched just now. Was it a misconception? The entire fortification exuded a rotten stench. This was already an empty city. But there must have been a large number of zombies gathered here. The best solution was to get rid of them together to prevent these things from escaping and harming the nearby fortifications. For example, the nearest large fortification, Rice City. The group followed closely behind the main group. After walking for about 5 minutes, they actually did not find a single zombie. This is a bit fishy, Liang Qingqing muttered to herself. Emichim. How is it possible that we haven't seen a single zombie after walking for so long? Where do you think they've all gathered? Unless there's a place or something in the city that's attracting them. Otherwise, it's impossible. Mo Lien stopped in his tracks, and everyone else also stopped in succession. When they followed his gaze and looked over, everyone was startled one after another. They saw a huge, black skull in front of them. Although it was formed from dense fog and did not seem like it would cause much harm to people, its mouth was wide open. It seemed like it was waiting for prey to enter on its own. Mo Lien's group stopped when they reached the skull's mouth. They felt like they would be swallowed by the skull's mouth if they walked any closer, so they couldn't help but feel a bit strange. Aside from this, there were 2 small alleys on the side that they could pass through, but they looked dark and had no end in sight. Their line of sight was obscured by the black fog, so it was a bit blurry, making it even harder to walk. Everyone turned their gazes to the Crown Prince, waiting for his decision. Duan Yu raised his hand, and a luminous pearl swiftly flew into the skull's mouth, illuminating the surroundings with a sizzle. Everyone's line of sight widened greatly at once. However, there was no skull in front of him. In fact, it was the city lord's mansion. The mouth of the skull corresponded to the gate of the city lord's mansion. It was quiet all around, without a single corpse puppet wandering around. Everyone looked at each other and simultaneously asked the Crown Prince with their eyes, "Enter." The Crown Prince nodded. "Let's go in and take a look." The group followed behind him and walked towards the main entrance of the city lord's mansion. Liang Qingqing suddenly turned her head and looked behind her warily. However, other than his teammates, there was no one else. But where did that extremely uncomfortable feeling of horror come from? Liang Qingqing frowned. This city lord's estate was located at the centermost location of the entire city district. Now that Duan Yu used the illuminating pearl to illuminate the surroundings, it was as if it was daytime. The illuminating pearl's range was extremely wide, and it could last for a long time. Therefore, they would be able to see their surroundings clearly for at least an hour. Everyone could only hear the light sound of their footsteps touching the ground. Other than that, the surroundings were completely silent. Just like that, under Mo Lian's lead, the group entered the main hall of the city lord's mansion and walked through the corridor towards the backyard. Chapter 1294. At the same time, the Fan clan's Fan Qiuming welcomed 3 uninvited guests. In the middle of the night, these 3 people appeared in his bedroom as if they had entered an uninhabited area. Although he was badly frightened, he still looked at them calmly. "You, who are you?" A voluptuous and enchanting woman walked forward. She looked to be in her early 20s, and her red lips were painted so brightly that they looked like the color of blood at first glance. "I heard that the Fan clan's little brother also went to the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm last time." Fan Qiuming's heart trembled, and his body inexplicably trembled. He looked at the woman's group with some alarm in his eyes. The fact that these 3 people could silently infiltrate their Fan clan without being discovered by anyone in the Fan clan showed that their cultivations were clearly higher than everyone in the Fan clan. If he didn't answer the woman's question properly, Fan Qiuming felt that he might not be able to see tomorrow's sun. With this thought, he nodded obediently to the woman. "Yes." The woman giggled, and her soft hands climbed up Fan Qiuming's shoulders. She half leaned on him and said with a smile, "Elder sister wants to ask you something." Elder sister heard that there is an extremely precious Xuanji core in this Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm. Did anyone obtain it? Fan Qiuming reflexively shook his head. The woman immediately turned hostile and mercilessly slapped his face. Her expression was somewhat cold as she said, "Think carefully before you speak." Fan Qiuming only felt the pain on his face, and his entire body shuddered. He hastily shook his head and said, really didn't. Not long after we entered that secret realm, the entire secret realm collapsed. How could anyone obtain? Halfway through his words, he seemed to have thought of something and paused. The woman's eyes brightened, and she propped an arm on Fan Qiuming's shoulder. She asked in a coaxing tone, "Little brother, you have to think carefully. This matter is of great interest to you and your clan." Bang! Fan Qiuming's door was suddenly kicked open by someone. Fan Qiuming looked at the door in surprise and saw his elder brother standing there with a cold expression. His gaze fell on the 3 people in the room. I didn't expect that there would be someone in the Fan clan who could sense our aura." The woman giggled and winked at Fan Qiuhe, who had appeared at the door. "You visited the Fan clan at night just to ask about the whereabouts of the Xuanji core?" Fan Qiuhe asked with a cold face. "That's right. Could it be that you know?" The woman looked at him suspiciously before shaking her head. "With your age, it's impossible for you to enter the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm. Qiuming, tell them the truth." Fan Qiuhe looked up at his younger brother and secretly gave him a look. Fan Qiuming seemed to have thought of something. He nodded and said, "Before the mystic realm collapsed, there was only one person who entered Senior Xuanji's small house. However, we don't know whether she has obtained the Xuanji core or not," Fan Qiuming added. "Oh. Who is it?" There was a hint of excitement in the woman's eyes, and her entire body was stretched taut. "Crown Princess." The woman's eyes flickered, and her large, blood-red lips curved in a smile. "It looks like we still have to make a trip to the palace." "No need." Fan Qiuhe's eyes flickered as he shook his head. Chapter 1295. The Crown Princess isn't in the palace at the moment. She went to a remote small fortification and can't return for the time being, Fan Qiuhe explained aloofly. "May I ask where seniors are from?" Fan Qiuhe cupped his hands and bowed to the 3 women. "If necessary, this younger brother is willing to take you to the small fortification to search for the Crown Princess." Fan Qiuming's eyes widened when he heard this, and he looked at his elder brother Fan Qiuhe incredulously. A young man who hadn't spoken all this time said coldly, "We are from Ani Prefecture. This is our Ani Prefecture's fourth miss, Guan Yiying. That is our Ani Prefecture's Pundit Zhao." The elderly man who was respectfully addressed as Pundit Zhao had his eyes tightly closed from beginning to end as he sat on the side with his arms crossed in repose. Fan Qiuhe cupped his hands at them. The Crown Princess is heading to Jiaozhong Fortification to clean up the remaining zombies. Along the way, she brought along 100 great mystic cultivators level 11 and above. The fourth miss, Guan Yiying, couldn't help but scoff when she heard this, her expression somewhat mocking and apathetic. Oh. 100 great level 11 mystic cultivators. That's a lot. Unfortunately, they are all ants in our eyes. Guan Yiying giggled. Fan Qiuhe's eyes flickered, and he said with a smile, "That's natural. How can the Crown Princess party compare to you experts? You brat, your words are very pleasing to the ear." Guan Yiying smiled at Fan Qiuhe. "How about this, you will take us to that base. I'm truly curious about that Crown Princess. Did she obtain the Xuanji core or not?" Fan Qiuhe chuckled. "How can an ant be worthy of possessing a divine item like the Xuanji core? Even if she obtained it, it would inevitably become Mrs. He, ha ha ha." Guan Yiying laughed loudly and nodded approvingly. She looked at Fan Qiuhe and said, "You brat, you're very good at causing trouble." On the side, Fan Qiuming was anxious for a while. Big brother, this. Could it be that Big Brother still didn't know the Crown Princess's methods after interacting with her until now? If the Crown Princess learned that it was their Fan clan that betrayed her, then how could she let them off? The entire family would suffer. At that time, would they be able to withstand the flames of the Crown Prince's rage? Fan Qiuhe looked at his younger brother coldly. "Qiuming, you don't have to meddle in this matter anymore." He was still worrying about how to make his move, but the time given by that person was running out. Their previous encounter in the Mystic Beast Forest made him feel that it was impossible for him to approach this Crown Princess. For some reason, the Crown Princess was like a lunatic. Every time she saw him, she wanted to kill him. But he had clearly never exposed his identity in front of her, so how did she know that he had ill intentions towards her? His original plan was to slowly infiltrate and get in touch with her through the giant bear squad. After all, according to his previous investigation, she had always treated the giant bear squad differently. But from the looks of it now, there was no chance at all. That person had already given the order to get rid of her as soon as possible. There was no need to do anything useless. Since that was the case, it was a good opportunity for him to borrow the strength of others and eliminate them with his bare hands. Fan Qiuhe exhaled deeply and looked at Guan Yiying with a smile. "It's just that the journey to Jiaozhong is rather long. Don't worry about that. With Reverend Zhao's six-winged goshawk, there's no need to worry about the journey." Fan Qiuhe smiled. "That's great." Chapter 1296. Arbor didn't know that a sizable storm was approaching her. She followed the group of people and wandered around the city lord's mansion before following the crowd to the main hall of the city lord's mansion. "It's very strange." Liang Qingqing scratched her head and said, "Why haven't we seen anything after walking around in such a big circle? Could it be that we came too late? All the zombies have already escaped from Jiaozhong Fortification." Impossible. If that's really the case, then how do we explain the thousands of villagers? They would have long been torn apart and devoured by the zombies that caught up. Mo Lian's eyes flickered, and she happened to meet Arbor's gaze when she turned her head. The two of them nodded at the same time. Mo Lian turned to instruct everyone, "Look around. There might be a secret passage here." That Lu Yuan said that it was the city lord and madam who led 2,000 loyalists and risked their lives to buy some time for the citizens to escape. But there wasn't a single zombie in the city lord's estate right now. Unless there was a secret passage, how else could this strange situation be explained? Hence, everyone spontaneously dispersed and knocked around the surroundings to search for a secret passage. After searching the main hall, they continued to search inside and circled the city lord's estate again before finally gathering next to a dry well in the backyard. Someone had used several huge rocks to firmly press down the well's mouth. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, and they all had their own guesses. This well's mouth is narrow, but some of these level 5 zombies are comparable to great mystic cultivators, so it's not like they can't push these huge rocks away, Mo Lien said in confusion. Unless there are no zombies in this well at all. Duan Yu pursed his lips and kicked at a rock. We'll know once we open it. Several mystic cultivators stepped forward and helped Duan Yu remove several boulders from the mouth of the well, revealing a pitch-black opening. Be careful. Arbor threw out a crowgold arrow and shot the chest of a zombie that suddenly wanted to jump out of the well. That thing crashed heavily on the ground before quickly moving again. Its hands were twisted as it supported itself on the ground. Its head was half drooping as it stretched out its half-missing neck and flicked out a long tongue. It looked extremely disgusting as hell. The female mystic cultivator quickly added a burst of mystic energy to that zombie's head and flung it several meters away before it rolled heavily into a corner. Everyone was disgusted by this thing and averted their gazes in disdain. However, just as everyone was about to enter the well, that zombie that was originally flung motionless in the corner suddenly twisted and turned its tattered body, strenuously trying to pounce into the crowd. Why isn't it dead? The female mystic cultivator was alarmed and furious. Just now, her profound energy had clearly landed on its head, and according to common sense, this corpse puppet should be thoroughly dead. However, it was completely fine and could still move stealthily on the ground. I'll be. The Maketes. Everyone turned their heads, but Arbor looked coldly at the rotten head that had fallen down. His eyes moved slightly and fell on the small crystal the size of a grain of rice that had fallen out of the mucus in the head. What is that? Duan Yu walked up and picked up that grain of rice before turning back to look at Arbor. It's a crystal core. Chapter 1297. Crystal core. This was the first time everyone heard that a crystal core could form in a zombie's head. Wasn't that something only mystic beasts had? Arbor's expression was especially grave. Zombies with crystal cores in their heads only appeared 2 years after she trained with the huge bear squad in her previous life. At that time, she should have been 18 years old. This meant that zombies had surpassed elementary level 5 3 years in advance and reached the standard of intermediate level zombies. Some of them had enough intelligence and could play some low-level and immature schemes with normal people. Arbor took out a bag and pattered to Duan Yu's side, having him throw this lustrous green crystal into the bag. Duan Yu's mouth twitched. It's useful. Arbor shook her head. She really wasn't sure if it was useful or not. In her previous life, she was captured by Fan Chiohan not long after the crystal appeared in a zombie's head, so she didn't have time to properly study this thing's use. With the mentality of not wasting it, she planned to collect it first. Go down the well. Everyone circled the well and threw in a match. However, the well was quite deep, and the match disappeared after a long time. Arbor glanced at Mo Lien. I'll go first. Everyone hastily stopped her. Wait. I'll go first. In this kind of situation, us men naturally have to take the lead. The mystic cultivator with the broad axe holstered his large axe behind his waist. He dug out a cumbersome set of armor from his inner world and equipped himself from head to toe. Only his eyes and mouth were exposed as he grinned at everyone. Big Brother Axe, be careful, Arbor warned with a stoic face, but everyone was thunderstruck by her Big Brother Axe. Brother Axe nodded and turned his wristband, covering his body with a transparent protective shield. The level of his defensive mystic weapon wasn't too high, but it was enough to deal with the bites of a few scattered zombies. Moreover, he was fully prepared. Zombies couldn't bite through such a thick armor at all. Take this. Duan Yu tossed him a stick with a luminous pearl fixed to the top. It was probably a lighting tool he made himself, so there was no problem with lighting up a small area. Brother Axe nodded and took it. He placed the luminous pearl stick on his waist and then took a deep breath. He leaped to the mouth of the well and slowly slid down vertically. His speed was not too fast. There was a circle of people surrounding the well, ready to attack. If a zombie pounced out, they would be able to rescue it in time. About 5 minutes later, Brother Axe landed at the bottom of the well. He swiftly killed 2 zombies that pounced on him. Then, he shouted to the top of the well, "Come down, there aren't any zombies here." With a swing of his axe, he chopped off the head of a small corpse puppet hidden in the dark. After rummaging through the corpse, he didn't find that kind of crystal nucleus, so he gave up. At this time, everyone had already slid down the well. They looked at the passageway in front of them, which was wide enough for one person. Huff, huff, huff. The torches were ignited, and for a moment, the entire passageway was illuminated as if it was daytime. Many corpse puppets were lying motionless in the tunnel. Arbor collected those tiny crystal nuclei as she walked. "Let's go." Everyone caught up with the group and vigilantly looked around. Suddenly, Mo Lien lightly tugged on her small hand. Xiao Mu stopped in her tracks and looked up. Not far from the end of the passageway, a figure had appeared at some point. 5 chapters first, I'll be busy again these next few days. There are still 5 chapters at night. Chapter 1298. However, that figure was like a ghost, disappearing in the blink of an eye. A female mystic cultivator shrieked and reflexively wiped her eyes. "He's gone." Pretending to be mysterious. Arbor flicked a silver needle forward with a flick of her finger. Ding, a light sound was heard. The silver needle actually fell to the ground as if it had collided with a wall. Everyone was slightly shocked. From where they were, they could clearly see that the path ahead was empty and there were no walls or anything like that blocking the way. "This is a bit interesting," eldest young Sir Qin said with a chuckle as he waved the fan in his hand. "Say, do you think we really encountered a ghost?" Arbor glanced at him and suddenly said, "You go." The eldest young Sir looked at her pitifully. "Why am I the vanguard?" Arbor glanced at him coldly and said reluctantly, "You're awesome." Eldest young Sir Qin blinked and immediately put on a radiant expression. "Really? You really think I'm awesome? Okay. Then I'll go." Eldest young Sir Qin walked forward smugly, as if he had received the greatest glory. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. When they turned around, they saw Prince Mo and 4th young Master Duan both revealing disdainful expressions and rolling their eyes in unison. A small chick with cyan feathers landed on Arbor's shoulder. Arbor glanced at Mo Lien from the corner of her eyes and explained in a rare effort, "Let him be the coolie and open the way." Duan Yu, what to do? This little fellow was becoming more and more adorable. This explained why she had praised that eldest Qin before, right? The eldest young Sir didn't understand, but he was quite cheerful. Not long after he walked up, he paced back and forth beside that invisible wall. Suddenly, he slapped out a burst of mystic energy on that wall. However, that wall was as soft as cotton, sucking in his palm until it caved in. Then, it fiercely rebounded. Eldest Qin wasn't slapped away by the wall. Instead, he leaned slightly to the side and forcefully tore the wall in front of him with both hands. Following a light tearing sound, a hole was torn open in the wall. Eldest Qin narrowed his eyes slightly and released several bursts of mystic energy with a swing of his hand, knocking the 3 zombies that suddenly pounced over to the ground. Everyone concentrated their firepower and blasted the dozen or so zombies behind the invisible wall into pieces within minutes. Then, he stepped on the corpses on the ground and walked over. Arbor held a pair of copper tweezers and bent down to pick up a small amount of crystal nuclei. Occasionally, he would be disgusted by the wide-eyed corpse hag on the ground and raise his hand to pat his chest. The group successfully passed through the tunnel. Not long after, they saw light coming from the opposite side. Speaking of which, this passageway was actually not very long. After walking for about half a cup of tea's time, they had almost reached the end. Eldest Qin extended his hand to stop everyone. He tilted his head slightly and sniffed. "Do you smell anything? What kind of smell can it have?" "The stench of decay." Duan Yu harumphed. "Don't tell me you're scared." "Me? Scared?" Eldest young Sir Qin couldn't help but feel exasperated. He glanced sideways at Qin Xian and said, "There's nothing in this world that I, Qin Xian, am afraid of." Duan Yu replied with a chuckle before pointing ahead. "Open the path." Eldest young Sir Qin reluctantly stepped forward. Just as he was about to squeeze out of the tunnel, he heard two roars. He hastily retreated a step and dodged to the side of the tunnel. Two sturdy zombies leaped in from the tunnel, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at the people in front of them. Chapter 1299. Ugly. Arbor shot an arrow at that zombie at close range. The crowgold arrow pierced through the zombie's head, but it didn't damage its crystal core, so it still pounced at Duan Yu's face. "You're courting death." Duan Yu decisively took out a small and exquisite gun and fired at that zombie's head. Boom! The zombie's head immediately caught on fire. After it burned to ashes, a green crystal core slightly bigger than a grain of rice dropped out. Arbor picked it up with a pair of tweezers and tossed it into the sack. He then turned to shout at Eldest Qin, who was hiding at the side of the tunnel, "Clear the way. Everyone, dot." Eldest young Sir Qin shook his head exasperatedly and waved the fan in his hand as he lamented with a sigh, "How did I end up with a little thing like you?" Eldest Qin's figure flashed, and after tearing apart the other transparent wall, covering the tunnel, earth-shattering hissing and roaring mixed with several shrieks instantly flooded into everyone's eardrums. Eldest Qin was startled, and after a moment of hesitation, he crawled out of the tunnel. Subsequently, he extended his hand, and Eldest Qin blocked Duan Yu and the others with an unsightly expression. "I'm telling you, if you return the way you came, there might still be time," Eldest young Sir Qin murmured softly. Arbor pushed aside Eldest young Sir Qin's blocking body and was startled when he crawled out of the tunnel to take a look. Duan Yu, Mo Lian, Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing, and the others also walked out. When everyone clearly saw the scene before them, they all gasped. There was a small plaza in front of them, and there was a torch-shaped circular platform in the center with a statue of the city lord placed on it. However, countless people were crawling on top of it at this moment, probably more than 1,000 of them. They were intertwined together like twisted dough, and the people on top were stepping on the heads of the people below. Everyone was finding a place to cling to tightly and doing their best to climb up. However, there was even a pot-bellied old man hanging from the top of that statue's head, swaying in the air with a pale face. When he saw that the crowd below was still endlessly climbing up, the old man couldn't help but shriek, "Don't push up, don't push up." Ah! He was pushed by the crowd below, and his body tumbled down from the top of the sculpture. On the round platform stood a circle of mystic cultivators and body cultivators who were on the verge of exhausting their mystic energy. Unable to even take care of themselves, they simply didn't have the strength to reach out and grab the falling old man. Everyone watched as he fell off the base of the statue and was torn into pieces by a group of roaring corpse puppets. In just a few seconds, he was reduced to a bloody mess. Oh my God! Liang Qingqing was used to seeing big scenes, but at this moment, she couldn't help but tremble slightly. As far as the eye could see, there were tens of thousands of corpse puppets. Mo Lian was also a little shocked, but she didn't show the same panic as the others. Previously, when Bailon City was besieged by tens of thousands of zombies, at the very least, they still had their unstoppable city walls and tens of thousands of citizens as their backing. But now, their team only had about 100 people. It was definitely unwise to fight head-on. It seemed like the only option was to retreat first. Retreat! Mo Lien shouted. Everyone made a prompt decision and turned to run into the tunnel. However, at this moment, those despairing people on the round platform had already discovered them, and they immediately shouted, "Save us! Don't go! Don't go!" Arbor looked back and saw two body cultivators holding heavy swords tumbling down from the round platform due to lack of strength. Chapter 1300. No, I beg you, don't go. Have a benevolent heart and save us. Jojo, let's go. Duan Yu tugged at her, and the group sprinted up the passageway at full speed. They used a speed at least 3 times faster than when they came. When they saw the well opening not far above them, a bright light suddenly flashed at the opening of the well. Duan Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he was just about to reach out to grab Arbor when Mo Lien pressed him to the ground and ordered sternly, "Get down." Boom! A huge tremor suddenly resounded in the narrow passageway. It instantly caused everyone's ears to buzz, and their faces turned pale. Someone had blown up the well opening. The collapsed rubble rolled down and instantly blocked half of the passageway. If they hadn't crawled up and retreated several dozen meters, some of them would probably have been buried alive. Damn it! Viciousness flitted across eldest young Sir Qin's eyes. The huge tremor attracted a portion of the zombies outside. However, the passageway was narrow, so the zombies couldn't pass through in large batches. Every time one of them came in, they would take care of it. Arbor's dark eyes gazed at the zombies blocking the passageway. Duan Yu. Okay, use firearms. Previously, they were worried that using large firearms would cause the passageway to collapse, but since it had already collapsed, it didn't matter if they blew it up again. Duan Yu took out a sparkling emerald bead from his sleeve and abruptly flicked it into the air. Then, he took out a green bamboo tube from his waist and opened the back cover, abruptly sucking the emerald bead into it. Retreat! Everyone simultaneously retreated at Mo Lien's command. At the same time, Duan Yu's finger abruptly twisted open the mechanism at the end of the bamboo tube. With a light press, a green light instantly exploded. After a ray of light shot out, it landed at the feet of the zombie horde outside, triggering a huge boom before exploding into large patches of flames. Arbor's eyes lit up, and she rummaged through her inner world. She also took out a small box and took out the 9 jade heavenly thunder that she had confiscated earlier. Wait, we'll use it when we reach the zombie horde. Duan Yu winked at her before waving his hand and saying, "It seems there's no way out now. We'll kill our way out. There must be a way out at the back of this plaza." Everyone gritted their teeth and charged out with him. Due to the might of the 9 jade heavenly thunder, one side of the small round platform had sunk into a sea of flames, and many zombies roared and struggled. But this fire also spread to the people on the round platform sculptures. Due to the heat of the fire, the mid and low-level mystic cultivators on the round platform who were barely resisting the zombie army were still fine, but the people hugging the bronze sculptures were a bit miserable, tsts, and felt and fell. Waved the waved ts. Below, there was a sea of corpses, and all the zombies raised their crooked arms, attempting to pull those normal people off the sculptures. Arbor released Qinghuan and flew up. It spat out a mouthful of ice, and several hundred zombies were pierced by sharp ice blades. But even if they had ice stuck to their heads or bodies, most of them were still able to move freely. They swayed their bodies and ran crookedly toward Arbor. Qinghuan had just flapped its wings and flew up when it saw a thick fog rolling toward it. Chapter 1301. A heavy gravity tugged at it, causing it to abruptly plummet downwards. Screech screech screech. Student Qingluan angrily steadied itself and abruptly flew over the heads of the shrieking zombies. There's something strange about this place. Master, I can't fly high. It's fine. Let me go to the round platform. Jojo. Mo Lien anxiously flew up when he saw this little fellow actually heading towards the statue. However, in less than a second, he also felt his body sink as he was abruptly pulled down by a force of gravity. Duan Yu raised his hand and beheaded a zombie that was pouncing at Mo Lien. Afterwards, he shouted at him, "Go watch over her. I'll stop her here." Mo Lien nodded and didn't say anything else as he dashed towards the round platform. However, due to gravity, his feet practically brushed past the zombies' heads, and a corner of his robe was torn by the zombies' rotting hands. It shattered with a ripping sound. When he strode to the base of the statue next to Arbor, his face involuntarily darkened when he looked down. His perfectly fine white robe had been torn to shreds by those beasts. Arbor held the jade heavenly thunder in his hand as he turned to the other side of the round platform. His eyes flickered with faint excitement as he fired a shot at the group of zombies. Boom! After a loud sound, the burning zombies rolled all over the ground, severely affecting a large area. At this time, a young, exhausted female mystic cultivator's eyes abruptly flashed with a venomous glint, and she abruptly struck Arbor's back. Die. Callie. Mo Lien's gaze had always been on his little wife and had never landed on anyone else. At this time, he was also the quickest to react. When he saw that crazy female mystic cultivator was actually attacking Jojo from behind, he swung his palm across the air and heavily slapped the other party's face. That female mystic cultivator called Callie cried out in alarm and almost tumbled off the round platform. If it weren't for the two strong teammates beside her pulling her back, she would have already fallen down and become a feast for the zombies. Callie's venomous gaze fell on Mo Lien. That damn gigolo actually dared to hit her. She yelled angrily at Mo Lien and Arbor, "You could have attacked just now. Yet, he thought of abandoning us and running away. Now, he must have been forced to retreat. How could he hide such a powerful firearm? What a pair of bitches." Mo Lien's hand that was holding Arbor stiffened. Damn, this was the first time someone called him and Jojo a pair of bitches. Arbor blinked, not understanding why the woman was so angry. Her indifferent voice sounded, "You are not my teammates." Everyone on the round platform who was filled with righteous indignation was slightly stunned when they heard this. Then, as if someone had hit them on the head with a hammer, they all became a little listless. Even though it was regrettable, she still had to consider the safety of her teammates in such a dangerous situation. "Do you think you can leave safely with firearms?" There were over 10,000 corpse puppets here. At most, only 1,000 or so had been taken care of by firearms. Even though these corpse puppets were on fire, most of them could still move around. These kind of corpse puppets were also very dangerous. If a normal person was hugged by them, they would be burned alive even if they weren't bitten to death. At this time, Duan Yu, eldest Qin, and the others led a group of great mystic cultivators to protect the four superhumans. They slaughtered a bloody path and rushed down the round platform. Upon seeing this, Arbor pulled Mo Lien and jumped down together. Chapter 1302. Mo Lien opened her palm, and a defensive boundary fell on everyone. "Kill our way out!" Duan Yu shouted. They had to charge out as fast as they could while carving out a bloody path. Otherwise, it would be difficult to break out of the encirclement if they were surrounded again. Now that the zombie horde was in chaos due to the explosion of firearms, when would they leave if not now? The 100-man team of great mystic cultivators twisted into a rope and blasted towards one direction with all their might. They advanced forward with great difficulty like a meat grinder pushing forward layer by layer. "Hurry and get down!" The mystic cultivators and body cultivators on the round platform roared at the group of people who were hugging the statue like fried dough twists. "Follow them! The group of Twisted Dough Twists started arguing. A portion of them insisted on leaving with the main group, while another portion believed that going down now was no different from courting death. Some people who were crushed in the pile of Twisted Dough Twists wanted to come out, but the people on the outer layer refused to withdraw their hands. As a result, loud arguments, cries, and screams filled this area. Several young lads forcefully shook off the people on their backs. In order to survive, they didn't care about the lives of those idiots. Only idiots would continue hanging here like fried dough twists. If they didn't take advantage of the situation and leave with that powerful team now, they would leave their lives here. No, no. Don't push me, no, a young girl hanging on the outer layer screamed and fell off the statue. The hands of two slightly older elders involuntarily trembled and they saw the young girl being torn to pieces. A young man on the inner layer kicked them out, and the two screamed as they fell down. Those nimble young men climbed out of the group of Twisted Dough Twists and jumped off the round platform, running after Arbor's group. However, the majority of people were unwilling to get down from the statue because they were in a wait-and-see mode. Everyone, please wait. We are a rescue team from Rice City. A brawny body cultivator who had pulled Callie up earlier called out from behind Arbor's group, "Can you please help them and wait a moment? Let me persuade them." Soft-hearted. Eldest young Sir Chin turned his head and coldly reprimanded. Since those people still wanted to wait and see in this situation, then let them continue to wait and see. Why bother with them? Xiao Mu curled her lips with a mocking gaze. If he had the time, he might as well kill a few more corpse puppets and quickly get out of this mountain of corpses. Smelling the stench, there was a rotten smell everywhere. That team from Rice City must be a bunch of idiots from Notre Dame. Just let them stay here and shine. Help them. He had hands and feet, so why didn't he jump down at the right time and follow the group? If they insisted on hanging themselves on the statue, what could they do about it? His skills were not good, and his brain was disabled. Such a person would not live long even if he was saved. It wasn't that they were cold-blooded, but they had seen too many idiots and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. Let's go. At Arbor's command, the 100-man team of great mystic cultivators quickened their pace and rapidly advanced. Wait. The rescue team from Rice City panicked. Carly ran after him and screamed, "Let's go. That damned cold-blooded troop. How dare they leave us in the lurch again and again?" Gah! An extremely unpleasant roar rolled out from the layers of black fog. When the corpse puppets heard this roar, it was as if they had been given some kind of military order. As if injected with chicken blood, they roared angrily at the sky and surrounded the group without a care. Chapter 1303. Arbor turned around and smacked a pouncing zombie on the head. Her gaze suddenly swept toward the sky. "Be careful." Whoosh. Suddenly, an ugly corpse puppet with a burly body and a face that had completely rotted away appeared in the air. Its true appearance could not be seen. Most importantly, it was floating in the air like a level 7 mystic cultivator and above and could fly for a short period of time. Everyone's expression shifted as they stared at this zombie. With a stern cry, it swooped down from the sky and grabbed a short mystic cultivator from Rice City's operation team with its two claws that were like iron pincers. Grabbing this mystic cultivator who was screaming for help, it flew into the sky. Soon, broken limbs fell from the sky. Several normal people shrunk their necks and hugged their heads as they screamed in horror. A faint chill flashed through Mo Lien's eyes. She pulled Arbor's hand and whispered, "Find a way out with the others first." When Arbor heard this, she was immediately displeased. "Then what about you?" "Don't worry, I'll immediately come over after dealing with the matters here." Seeing her taut face and silence, Mo Lien helplessly chuckled. "Don't worry, you know that no one here can stop me if I want to escape." That was true. Arbor glanced at her. "Hurry and go." Mo Lien squeezed her hand. Go find a water source with them first. I'll immediately rush over after dealing with the matters here. There were so many zombies, so they couldn't possibly let them out to harm people. Otherwise, the first to suffer would definitely be Rice City. Arbor nodded reluctantly. She turned around and saw Duan Yu smiling at her. Hurry and go. I'll stay behind to watch this punk and see what he's up to. Xiaomu nodded her small head and turned around to lead the large group of people toward the exit of the small plaza. Seeing this, Rice City's rescue team hastily followed. Mo Lien and Duan Yu didn't stop them and merely turned to the side to let them pass. When that female mystic cultivator, Kali, passed by them, she glanced at them with a complicated expression before running over with large strides. Duan Yu. Excellent. Duan Yu raised his head in a smile as he repeatedly flicked out several core-ravaging thunders. Mo Lien immediately jumped up, 2 lotus seal whirlpools appearing in his eyes. In an instant, a cluster of the purest black flames between heaven and earth jumped from his fingertips. As soon as this flame appeared, it was as if the great emperor was looking down on the world. The flames that were originally burning on the field dimmed at the same time. The ball of black fire turned into several black lotuses and flew out from his fingers, landing in the middle of the field. The green and red flames that were originally everywhere suddenly merged with the black flames, and then a powerful energy was born. With a tang sound, all the flames raged. Within the red and green flames, there was a trace of black. Within a few minutes, the corpse puppet that was tainted by the flames was burned to ashes. Not even a trace of ash was left. Duan Yu's eyes abruptly bulged, and he quickly reached out to support Mo Lien, who was swaying slightly. How are you? Mo Lien shook her head. Duan Yu exclaimed in amazement, You punk, you're incredible. You actually carried a sacred fire and no one knew. Stop blabbering. Throw out 2 more. Okay. Duan Yu took out the Jade Heavenly Thunder and fired out 2 more rounds. Afterwards, he grabbed Mo Lien and pulled him along as they dashed out of the plaza. The 2 of them guarded the exit of the plaza like door gods. As long as they saw a foolish corpse puppet escaping, they would work together to kill it. Chapter 1304. The sacred fire engulfed everything in heaven and earth. Its might was truly too great. Right now, the entire plaza was completely enveloped by the sacred fire. Not to mention the walls and eaves being melted by the sacred fire, it was impossible for the zombies to escape even if they howled. Roar, roar, roar. The flying zombie flew out from the exit in a rage. Its pair of sinister eyes stared straight at Mo Lien from its rotting eye sockets. It's my turn to shine. Duan Yu pushed him aside and rolled up his sleeves to hook his finger at the zombie. Come. You ugly fellow, your grandpa Duan Yu will make sure you don't leave today. Roar. The flying zombie roared angrily and abruptly swooped down from the sky, wanting to grab Duan Yu again like how it grabbed that short mystic cultivator. What a joke. Can you catch me? Duan Yu blinked his bright eyes and leisurely raised his hands, crossing them in front of his eyes to block. Bang! Black spirit armor gauntlets formed on his hands and were impervious to weapons, instantly repelling that zombie's claws. Let me show you my full-body spirit armor. Duan Yu giggled mischievously. In the blink of an eye, black spirit armor covered his entire body, and he jumped into the air with a whoosh, arriving in front of that zombie. Without any explanation, he smashed a fist at that zombie's head. Boom! His fists were covered in spirit armor and entwined with threads of spirit chi. With a single punch, he immediately knocked the flying corpse puppet backwards and smashed it into the earth wall behind it with a bang. Roar! Roar, roar! That zombie already had intelligence and sensed that the 2 men in front of it were not to be trifled with, so it actually turned its head to flee. In the blink of an eye, Mo Lien's sacred fire transformed into a black whip that swept over and instantly coiled around the zombie's waist. After a vicious tug. Bang! The sacred fire coiled around the zombie and it crashed heavily to the ground. Clang! After a light sound, a token rolled down from its waist. Duan Yu glanced down, and his expression turned odd. Mo Lien, guess who he is? Jiaozhong City's city lord. Mo Lien leaned against the small dirt wall at the exit and looked at the zombie with a cold gaze. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill it. Fine, fine, you heartless guy. Duan Yu swiped his hand, and the raven-bone sword appeared in his hand. He abruptly pierced through the head of the struggling zombie on the ground. A mighty wave of mystic energy swept over, and Duan Yu sent that city lord's corpse puppet's head flying with a swing of his sword. He then took out a glowing green crystal core that was slightly larger than a fingernail. It seems to be slightly bigger than the previous undead hags. He muttered to himself and turned to look at him. Suddenly, he grinned at him. Do you think I should kill you now? Then Jojo will be mine. Mo Lien threw him a cold look. Cut the crap. Come and help me. Tisk, Duan Yu turned his head and harumphed. Why aren't you afraid at all? You're even freaking acting like a lord. As he spoke, his body reacted faster than his brain. In a flash, he appeared beside him and supported him. At the same time, he stabbed a corpse puppet with his sword and kicked it back into the square, causing it to spontaneously combust. Hey, don't tell me you were discovered by heavenly law. Duan Yu chuckled gloatingly. Hurry up and go to the upper bound. I will take good care of Jojo. Scram. Mo Lien glared at him. Chapter 1305. Heh. Duan Yu cast him a sidelong glance and firmly grasped his wrist. When he saw Duan Yu's body tilting, he teasingly called out, Hey, don't fall. However, he still propped up his slender body and rolled his eyes. I'm telling you, I'm not interested in men. Thanks, but I'm also not the slightest bit interested in you. Mo Lien rolled her eyes at him. Haha. Duan Yu giggled. Fine, fine, then I'll tell you. You better not provoke me right now. My mind is in a fierce struggle right now. It's very likely that I'll kill you while the moon is dark and the wind is strong. In any case, you're being suppressed by heavenly law right now, so you'll die sooner or later. Mo Lien irritably glanced at him. So long-winded. What are you saying? Duan Yu pursed his lips. Treat me better, punk. You won't do it at all. Because you won't do anything to make her sad. Duan Yu's handsome face stiffened, and he cast him a sidelong glance. However, his gaze just so happened to meet Mo Lien's. Seeing his clear and penetrating gaze, she harumphed in displeasure. Mo Lien impatiently placed her hand on his shoulder, placing all her weight on him. Hurry and take me away. Thump. A loud knock landed on Mo Lien's head, and the latter looked at Duan Yu, that punk, in bewilderment. Duan Yu was inwardly pleased, but his face remained taut as he rudely warned, Punk, watch yourself. I might freaking not be able to kill you, but I can beat you up. How about it, are you scared now? Duan Yu grinned as he dragged Mo Lien's body, half propping, half dragging her out. I'm not scared of you, you idiot. The two of them hadn't walked far while supporting each other when a series of explosions sounded in the small plaza. Duan Yu's footsteps paused as he supported Mo Lien, and he turned his head to look. He saw that the plaza had been sealed off by a raging inferno and thick smoke. Not to mention a zombie, even a ghost would not be able to escape. My month section break. Arbor tilted his head and jumped up to look at the small square in the distance. He pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Don't worry, little junior sister. With those two fellows together, you can't find anyone in the entire Seacombe planet who can make things difficult for them. It'll be fine. Situ-E comforted her with a smile. Then why aren't you here yet? The little fellow turned his head and glanced at senior brother Situ. With their cautious nature, they will definitely wait at the exit for a while to see if any corpse puppets escape, Situ said with a smile. Don't worry, junior sister. It will be fine. Senior brother Situ, senior brother Situ. As he spoke, a few disciples quickly ran over from afar. We found a water source. Outside the city lord's mansion, it's at the back of the mountain. Contaminated? Situyi's expression changed as he quickly walked towards them. Yeah, it's completely black. The water looks especially disgusting. Senior brother Situ, senior sister Liang. Little junior sister. Another disciple quickly ran over. We discovered man-made ponds. There are 3 in the entire city. They've all been contaminated. Liang Qingqing's expression darkened at once. Yes, senior sister. That disciple nodded solemnly. Should I bring you over to take a look now? Let's go to the nearest one. Arbor gave the final word. Has everyone returned? Everyone's back. Keep up. Everyone clamored as they followed the 2 disciples leading the way, heading towards the man-made pond. Chapter 1306. Mo Yen had ordered for every fortification to prepare their own pools for the sake of dealing with unexpected situations. She had sent people to guard the water source, but unfortunately, it didn't seem to be effective and was still destroyed. The ponds weren't too big, but they had enough water for daily use. There are a total of 3 ponds like this in the city. Arbor turned to ask the disciple who discovered the ponds. Yes. That disciple nodded repeatedly and walked to the side while pinching his nose. It stinks like hell. Look at the water inside. It's like mud and filth. Arbor nodded. If they're poisoning the water source at the same time, they'll have to split into several groups to do it. That's right. The 4 water sources are quite far apart from each other. Especially the water source behind the city lord's estate. It's a living water source. It's not easy to pollute the entire water source. Where does the water source lead to? Arbor's expression changed. Is it the nearby Rice City? When the Rice City rescue team heard this, their expressions changed. They all started talking at once. What? The stinky water is heading to our Rice City? What should we do? The people of Rice City are still in the dark. Then what are you guys still standing there for? Hurry back to Rice City and report the situation. Arbor glanced at them coldly. His first impression of these brainless people from Rice City was very bad. Rescuing people had to be done within their means. The first thing to consider was the lives of their teammates. Otherwise, if they sacrificed themselves in the rescue, they wouldn't be able to save anyone and another group of people would die. What was the point of that? Also, did they need to accommodate Dong Shi, who was born to be arrogant and unwilling to cooperate even when they came to rescue you? If they didn't want to die, they could just scram. They came to rescue them because of morality. As a person, they had to know their place. The female mystic cultivator named Callie shouted with a dark face, "There are still many zombies nearby. Our team only has a dozen people left. We don't have enough strength to break through. That's something your team leader has to consider." Arbor looked at her indifferently. Let's check out the other water sources. Everyone in Rice City's rescue team had ugly expressions on their faces. After Arbor and the others moved, they also moved forward. Because he really didn't know what he could do now. If they didn't run with the other teams, with the little fighting power of their defeated team, if they were to be surrounded by zombies again, they wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between the zombies' teeth. When everyone moved to the next dried up and smelly pool, a mystic cultivator in the back suddenly shouted, "You're not that one. Don't run." Arbor heard the sound and turned around, only to see a ghostly shadow brush past the ruins of the earth wall and suddenly jump into a dilapidated house. He's just pretending to be mysterious. Arbor flashed past, and Situ E, Liang Qingqing, and the others followed suit. Wait. Carly stretched out her hand to stop her teammates. She raised her eyelids slightly and said, "It might be dangerous. Let's not go over there. Just wait here." Arbor's group jumped into the dilapidated house and chased after him. There was a big hole in the backyard of the house. Like a big mouse, the man slipped out of the hole. Arbor waved his hand, and half of the earth wall crumbled to the ground with a crack. Narrowing his eyes, Arbor said softly, "Your invisibility talisman won't work." With that, he flung his hand, and several silver needles flew over. This time, there was nothing to hide behind, and a grunt came from the corner of the wall. Chapter 1307. "Ah," a female mystic cultivator exclaimed in surprise. "Aren't you that? That Jiaozhong Fortification's second manager, Lu Yuan? Why are you here, brat?" Brother Axe strode forward and was just about to grab Lu Yuan's hair when he heard Arbor shout, "Be careful." He retracted his hand, and a short red-eyed zombie darted out from the side and viciously bit the heavy armor on his arm. "It's that child. The City Lord's estate's young sir. Heavens, he's really zombified." Everyone hastily came to his rescue and flung the little zombie into a corner with several bursts of mystic energy. "Come back." Xiao Mu reprimanded with widened eyes. Brother Axe looked down at his heavy armor and exhaled before turning back to smile foolishly at Arbor. "It's fine, I." Suddenly, a barbed tongue shot out from the little zombie's mouth and went straight for Brother Axe's mouth. Brother Axe's entire body was covered in heavy armor, only his mouth and eyes exposed. In his panic, he sent out a burst of mystic energy and missed the wriggling tongue. He could only watch as the barbed tongue wriggled toward his mouth. Brother Axe's scalp tingled, and he raised his broad axe with a roar. The little zombie was truly too fast. This happened in the blink of an eye. Arbor abruptly threw an icicle at the long wriggling tongue, instantly severing a small portion of it at the waist. Sitting in a corner, Lu Yuan's eyes flashed gloomily when he saw this. He grabbed a thick rope and was about to climb into the hole in the wall. Unexpectedly, the tongue that had fallen to the ground suddenly leaped up and flew into Lu Yuan's slightly open mouth as if it had grown eyes. Lu Yuan didn't expect this at all. The barbed tongue was already stuck in his throat, causing his eyes to bulge out of their sockets in shock and terror. He was still holding a thick rope in his hand, and the other end of the rope was tightly bound to the little zombie. The frightened Axe brother hurriedly returned to his team and nodded gratefully at Arbor. "Thank you." The female mystic cultivator at the side pursed her lips and said in astonishment, "Look, he's still holding on to that little zombie. Could it be that he thinks he can control this corpse puppet? He probably came back to look for supplies." Arbor coldly glanced at Lu Yuan, who was slumped in the corner. "I just didn't expect to go for wool and come home shorn." "That's right." Eldest young Sir Qin nodded. "It must be that the City Lord's estate's youngest young sir knows where the supplies are. This Lu Yuan saw that we were here to exterminate the zombies, so he had the idea of bringing the City Lord's son back to secretly search for supplies. I didn't expect to lose my life here." Situi shook his head. With a wave of his sword, he chopped off Lu Yuan's head. On the other side, 3 great mystic cultivators fixed the little zombie in place with mystic energy. Looking at its scarlet eyes filled with hatred, they shook their heads and said, "Do we need to leave it behind to find supplies?" Arbor pursed her lips and shook her head. Eldest young Sir Qin immediately swiped his fan with his hand, and a powerful mystic energy directly penetrated the little zombie's head with it. "Look around. There's probably an underground granary here," Arbor said softly, suddenly losing interest in talking. "Jojo, what's there to be unhappy about? Even if we don't kill these monsters, we can't just wait to be killed by them." Eldest Qin winked at her. Suddenly, an eagle cry sounded, #continuing at night. Chapter 1308. Arbor was crouching on a mound of earth with his small chin in his hands. Besides eldest Chin's long-winded chatter, many team members were also chattering. No wonder this Lu Yuan acted so strangely earlier. Even if the city lord's estate's youngest young master would turn into a zombie, he still insisted on keeping him by his side. Truly, one's own selfish desires harmed one's own life. The one who suddenly appeared in the tunnel just now was this Lu Yuan, right? He's the most familiar with the city lord's estate's geography. I wonder how His Highness the Crown Prince is doing. Do you guys think that the underground storehouse is still at the end of the tunnel? When he heard the hawk's cry, Arbor reluctantly raised his small head. An enormous black shadow swooped down from the sky. Qin Xian suddenly flew up and grabbed Arbor to dodge to the side. Who is it? Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing, and the others all rushed forward as if they were facing a great enemy. They saw a huge six-winged hawk swooping down in the air. After missing its attack, a cold glint appeared in the hawk's eyes, and with a cry, it once again swooped down in Arbor's direction. An enormous force sent several great mystic cultivators nearby flying. Qin Xian's cold eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to attack, he was pulled back by Arbor. I'll take care of it myself. What the hell? Did he think he was the ruler of the sky just because he was sitting on a hawk? Get down. Arbor pulled out a green vine whip and swung it straight up. After a whip mark, one of the four people sitting on the six-winged goshawk, a young man among them let out a soft cry of surprise. Catch her! Guan Yiying shouted harshly. With a flick of her finger, she flung out an iron chain and knocked away Arbor's green vine whip. The six-winged goshawk suddenly soared high into the sky and flung away the several great mystic cultivators who were pouncing over with its open wings. It swooped down from the sky at an extremely fast speed, and its claws were about to grab Arbor's shoulder. Qinghuan rushed over from the distance and swatted away the hawk's claws. Its sharp claws were like blades, directly tearing a hole in the hawk's claw. The eagle let out a shrill cry. Arbor looked coldly at the people on the eagle's back. She saw her old acquaintances at a glance. Big brother next door, Fan Chioha. You're here to die. Arbor said coldly. The huge commotion made Carly and the others rush over like a swarm of bees. When they saw the green Yuan and the six-winged goshawk whose huge wings covered the sky, everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment. Pa! With a whipping sound, the green vine whip condensed from spiritual energy scraped a deep white mark on the ground. Since you're here, then stay here for me. Arbor leaped up onto the back of the blue Yuan and glared coldly at the four people on the eagle's back. Hee hee. Little girl, you sure talk big. Guan Yiying stood on the eagle's back with her arms crossed, her ample bosom almost overflowing. Old girl, you sure talk big, Arbor said with a straight face, but the words that came out of her mouth made Guan Yiying's face contort in anger. What? What the hell is an old girl? The tense atmosphere almost went astray in an instant. Situ Yi and the others painfully held back their laughter, their expressions somewhat contorted. Enough nonsense. Guan Yiying shouted angrily. Bring it on. I'd like to see how capable a damn girl like you is. Chapter 1309. You're the one who's been talking nonsense. Arbor had the attitude of wanting to piss people off. She said this and tapped the back of Blue Yuan with the tip of her foot. He flew into the air and threw out 18 sparkling and translucent hexagonal snowflakes. When the snowflakes flew in front of the six-winged goshawk, they instantly exploded. A huge amount of spiritual energy overflowed in an instant and almost flipped the four people on the goshawk's back off. The old man who had been resting with his eyes closed was Consecrator Zhao. He abruptly opened his sharp old eyes, which were filled with disbelief as he coldly glared at Xiao Mu. Xueling. The little girl in front of him was a weakling from the lower star region. Not only could she control the water spirit, but she could also control it so skillfully. She could condense water into ice and turn ice into snow. This ability to control the water spirit was probably only possessed by great spiritual masters. They might not even have the talent to be able to change between the various states of spirit water at any time. This girl couldn't be someone from an ordinary small family in the lower star region. "Who are you?" What answered the old man was Arbor's vine whip. "Ask on your way to the underworld." Xiao Mu narrowed her eyes, and she swiftly swiped open the void, pulling out a ferrule. She instantly imbued the ferrule with spiritual energy, and it carried a lush green light as it swatted at the six-winged goshawk's head. The crowd below shuddered one after another. Savage. Too savage. This was their little crown princess. The little crown princess who cared for her teammates so much along the way. Once they became her enemy, she wouldn't even bother to talk nonsense with them. She would just attack. Wood spirit. The old man's eyelids twitched wildly. He hurriedly threw out a spiritual energy shield and covered the people on the goshawk's back. Boom! Under the huge force, the six-winged goshawk couldn't stabilize its body and fell straight to the ground. Seeing this, Blue Luan, who cooperated well, immediately rushed over and spat out a mouthful of ice that had been stored up for a long time. It shot straight toward the six-winged goshawk's head. Roar! The six-winged goshawk dodged a few icicles, but it couldn't dodge all of them. The Blue Luan's combat power was not something that a small goshawk like it could resist, although the goshawk's combat power was indeed not bad. However, as the saying goes, comparisons are odious. The six-winged goshawk was, after all, just a high-level mystical beast. It had no chance of winning against a spirit beast, let alone a divine bird like Qing Luan. The six-winged goshawk was pierced through its head and wings by two icicles and fell straight to the ground. Arbor stood on the back of the Blue Luan and circled around them. His eyes were cold as he looked at them. Cough, cough, cough. Guan Yiying choked on a mouthful of dust, her eyes filled with disbelief. The little girl that he thought he could easily deal with a flick of his finger was actually controlling the water spirit and the wood spirit. Are their eyes playing tricks on them? Who the hell are you? Guan Yiying's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. She even began to think of retreating. They had been rash this time, coming here to humiliate themselves without understanding the situation clearly. But even if they retreated now, they had to see if the other party was willing to let them go. Pundit Zhao's old eyes narrowed sharply. Were you the one who killed Pundit Li and Gong Yang in the Mystic Beast Forest? The life lantern miniatures that Pundit Li and Gong Yang sent back were extremely blurry. Both of them were in the thick fog of gunfire explosions. Chapter 13:10. At that time, he could only see a blurry white beast. In Pundit Zhao's view, the slender figure next to the beast was increasingly similar to the crown princess in front of him. So it's a few fish that slipped through the net from Ani Prefecture. Arbor raised several streams of water and shuttled them back and forth between his fingers. Kill them. Arbor's figure moved, and he was the first to pounce at Pundit Zhao. Qingluan let out a shrill cry and pounced at the young man from Ani Prefecture. As for the little fat squirrel that suddenly appeared, it rushed towards Guan Yiying with a whoosh. Although Guan Yiying was a bit scared, she felt abnormally angry when she saw a little fat squirrel daring to bare its fangs and brandish its claws in front of her. Before she could curse, "Little bastard," Pundit Zhao's shout suddenly sounded in her ears. "Yiying, be careful." Guan Yiying's scalp exploded as she instantly sensed a dangerous aura assaulting her. She promptly made a decision and rolled on the ground, seizing a sliver of time to dodge a large, furry tail. Boom! Ah! All the hairs on Guan Yiying's body stood on end. When she opened her eyes and focused, she saw a squirrel the size of a small mound standing in front of her and blinking cutely at her. But in the next second, its movements weren't the least bit cute. Its straightened tail was like a large club as it ruthlessly smashed at her again. Bang! Bang bang! Guan Ying could only roll on the ground to dodge the attacks. She had no choice but to dodge the attacks. She squatted up with great difficulty and threw out several mystic energy bursts, but they were all blocked by the fat mound squirrel's claws in the first instance. Its claws looked white and soft, yet they could actually block a level 1 spiritual cultivator's attack. Sweat gradually appeared on Guan Ying's forehead, and her pupils abruptly contracted as she felt a strong sense of fear. Today, she had kicked an iron plate. On the other side, Pundit Zhao also gradually felt a sense of pressure in the battle. Arbor used an aura-concealing talisman, so in Pundit Zhao's view, he was a small level 9 mystic cultivator. But the combat strength of this girl in front of him made him break out in cold sweat. Not only did she summon 2 mystic beasts, her own strength was far from what a level 9 mystic cultivator could compare to. Arbor waved her hand, and 5 streams of water flowed along her fingertips. With her current level of control over water, she could only control such a thin stream of water. It was fine to deal with ordinary people, but it seemed to be a little weak against this old ghost. She covered her hands with the Vajra amulet and pounded her fists on the old man's chest. Boom! Boom! 2 strikes landed on the other party's defensive barrier. Consecrator Zhao's complexion actually turned slightly pale. Great ape! Xiao Mu blinked her eyes, following which she shouted. Consecrator Zhao's body suddenly tensed up. He felt a terrifying aura coming from behind him. When he turned around to look, the back of his head was heavily smacked by a furry claw. He was immediately stunned. He staggered and fell forward heavily. He stared at the girl in front of him. Her eyes flashed with a cold demonic light. She raised a black ferrule with both hands and struck it fiercely at his head. Pfft! Attacked from the front and back, Consecrator Zhao was heavily injured, and his aura instantly withered. You still dare to be absent-minded while fighting me? Arbor curled her lips and sneered. Everyone from Ani Prefecture deserves to die. Arbor waved her hand and sent 5 icicles into the other party's body. Chapter 13:11. Consecrator Zhao. Guan Ying's eyes were bloodshot as she stared blankly at the little crown princess killing Consecrator Zhao on the spot. But there was nothing she could do. She couldn't even protect herself and was powerless to stop it. Roar, roar, roar. The large ape patted its chest, looking like it was asking for praise. Xiao Mu cast a sidelong glance at his hairy and silly grinning face and harumphed. You're still under observation, so be careful. The large ape's head immediately drooped down, revealing a pitiful look. At this time, Guan Ying and the other young man were completely panicking when they saw Consecrator Zhao's miserable state. Guan Ying exchanged a look with the young man, then suddenly took out a talisman from her arms. Arbor's sharp eyes noticed that it was a teleportation talisman. He immediately pounced over and reached out to grab it. Guan Ying and the young man had already activated the talisman and teleported away. Fan Chioha was extremely cunning. When Arbor was fighting with Consecrator Zhao, he had already sneaked away when no one was paying attention. Arbor's eyes flashed, and he took out a teleportation talisman from his fingertips. As eldest Qin shouted, "Jojo, don't chase," Arbor's figure disappeared with a whoosh. Qing Luan and the fat squirrel looked at each other, then suddenly jumped up, shouted, "Master," and chased forward. The large ape scratched its head. Its arms thumped against the ground, and it hurriedly chased after Qing Luan on all fours. After Arbor teleported twice, he realized that Guan Ying and the young man were not in front of him at all. He was instantly unhappy. This teleportation talisman was a little tricky. When he teleported out, he couldn't grasp the distance and direction. Everything depended on his face. She was standing beside a pool of sewage. She had inspected this place with her teammates before. At that time, she didn't do anything when she looked at the sewage in the pool. Now that she was standing here alone, she couldn't help but think. She could clearly smell the rotten stench in the pool. She covered her nose and her eyebrows moved slightly. A small stream of water flowed out from between her fingers and suddenly slid into the pool. After the water was sprinkled in, a small layer of ripples appeared on the surface of the pool, and a mass of green and clean water wrapped around the filth in the pool. This circle of water wrapped around the stinky water and slowly became sparkling and translucent. In the blink of an eye, the improved water was swallowed up by a large area of dirty water. Arbor squatted beside the pool and said to himself, "It seems that it's not impossible to improve. If Jian Jian was here, she could probably restore this place to its original state with a wave of her hand." With just a few small streams of water in her hands, she definitely had no chance. Thinking of this, she felt a little excited. What did this mean? In this life, she and all the people around her would no longer suffer the pain of having no water to drink from the polluted water source. She had the holy water in her hands, so this kind of situation did not exist. Arbor took a deep breath. Just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. It was accompanied by a strong murderous aura. Alarm bells suddenly rang in his mind. A heavy and strong mental power attack rushed toward her conscious. The speed was very fast. The 12 jade slips transformed from the golden talisman jade tome immediately rotated and wrapped around each other, forming a protective shield that blocked this attack without hesitation. Chapter 13:12. But Arbor still felt a slight prickle in his head. A person's figure swayed by the pool, subconsciously reaching out to support his forehead. When he opened his eyes and looked not far away, his eyes had already condensed into ice, containing a cold, sharp killing intent. Huh. The person who came couldn't help but sound puzzled when his attack didn't damage the opponent's spiritual consciousness. The little girl is a bit strange. The person who spoke had an old face comparable to a monkey's. His cheeks were puffed up high, revealing a trace of excitement when he saw his prey. Arbor slightly wrinkled his brows, unhurriedly waving a mystic guiding talisman formation beside him. "Damn it, old monkey. Why aren't you making a move? This little girl is indeed a great talisman master, be careful. She's just a talisman master, isn't it easy for me to capture her?" The shrewd monkey man called Old Monkey stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, a lustful look on his face. He stared at Arbor and said, "The little girl is born with delicate skin and tender flesh, she's actually a rare beauty in this world." Old Monkey suddenly dodged to the side, dodging a string of poison darts that flew out from Arbor's hand. "A stinky mouth can't spit out ivory." Arbor coldly snorted, "You just used a spiritual attack on me." "Hee, the little girl understands spiritual attacks, it's indeed a bit strange." Although Old Monkey's eyes carried a lustful smile, his expression was extremely vigilant, guarding against Arbor's attack. "Now it's my turn to make a move." Arbor sneered and said, "It's impolite not to reciprocate." She stimulated her spiritual consciousness, instantly penetrating the opponent's consciousness, catching him off guard and giving him a fierce blow. Old Monkey, who was already on guard, didn't expect this girl to also use a spiritual attack. In an instant, he was hit head-on. He roared on the spot, his body heavily falling backwards. Old Monkey. That companion hiding in the dark couldn't hold it in any longer and jumped out with a furious roar. He struck out a heavy gust of wind directly at Xiaomu. Boom! That heavy profound energy heavily pounced on the large cauldron that Arbor had suddenly withdrawn and placed in front of him. The 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron helped her block this fierce attack. Although Arbor was hiding behind the cauldron, he felt a little uncomfortable. Because of this collision, his internal organs seemed to have been forcefully shifted a few inches, and his chest felt stuffy and uncomfortable. Although her cultivation as a mystic cultivator had increased, her body still needed to be tempered. If her body wasn't strong enough, she would suffer in battle like now. The earth spirit rolled out. Under Old Monkey's slightly shocked gaze, he quickly retreated. Layers of soil piled up under their feet, forming an earth spirit barrier. Old Monkey and his companions were slightly shocked, and the barrier collapsed and fell down on them. The two of them roared again and again, jumping back and forth in the gray layer of the falling soil. They saw Arbor turn around and run. Old Monkey shouted, "Chase after them." He took the lead and rushed out. "You aren't from Ani Prefecture." Arbor instantly released a water spirit barrier behind her. In an instant, the force from Old Monkey in the other person heavily landed on her back, pushing her forward several meters. Xiao Mu twisted her body in midair and agilely leaped a large step forward. She suddenly took out the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron again and blocked the 2 attacks coming from the front. Chapter 13:13. Arbor fled because she sensed more than 10 auras of varying strength attacking her. This meant that Old Monkey's companions were chasing after her. She would not foolishly stay in the same spot and wait for them to gang up on her. What kind of joke was this? Although she did not know who these people were, Arbor had some speculations in her heart. Old Monkey's companions chased after her quickly and leaped up. A palm wind mixed with thick mystic energy attacked Arbor's back again. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 teleportation talismans were used, and Arbor's figure instantly moved to 1,000 meters away. Damned brat, she has talismans on her. Quickly capture her. More than 10 people rushed out from the dark and surrounded Arbor, intending to force her into the encirclement. Arbor had been attacked by Old Monkey's mental energy at the beginning and felt a slight pain in her head. After that, the attacks from those people were still manageable for her. It was just that Old Monkey had more companions now, which was not a good thing for her. If she was really captured by them in the encirclement, she would definitely be beaten up by them. She was a little speechless. If she had known earlier, she would not have teleported. Or if she had brought Qing Wan and the others with her, at least she had a helper now. Impulse was the devil. The teleportation talisman was not reliable. If the teleportation talisman could speak, it would definitely complain that she was not reliable. It was not like she did not know its settings. Now that she had teleported so many times, she herself did not know where she had teleported to. What was hateful was that Old Monkey. After being attacked by her mental energy, he still dared to use his spiritual consciousness to lock onto her. No matter where she teleported to, he was like a damned fly, immediately buzzing towards her. Ha! She wanted to see how long this Old Monkey's spiritual consciousness could lock onto her. Anyway, she had a lot of talismans. I'll teleport, I'll teleport. I'll teleport, teleport, teleport. If one looked down from the sky now, they would find that this little fellow was very funny. She was holding a bunch of talismans and teleporting around the city lord's residence. That figure was like a ray of light, appearing in the east with a whoosh and then in the north with a whoosh. In the end, she accidentally teleported in front of the dumbfounded Old Monkey. When Old Monkey discovered that the little girl was right in front of its eyes with its spiritual sense, it couldn't react in time and struck out with its palm. The little girl suddenly teleported away again. Xiao Xiao. Eldest Qin and the others were also searching for Xiao Mu's whereabouts. He happened to see her little body flash and disappear. She was really a troublesome girl. Damn it! Old Monkey and the others were enraged. More than a dozen people were chasing a little girl who was a level 9 mystic cultivator, yet they freaking spent so much effort. It was simply infuriating. Old Monkey and the others were enraged, and they released their Xian beasts one after another. Old Monkey took a step forward and sat on the big black dog. He hissed, "Forward! His spiritual sense was running out. If he couldn't find that damned little girl before the deadline, he wouldn't be able to lock her down. Not being able to lock her down meant that it would be even harder to find her. This damned girl was like a slippery loach, going east and going west. It was simply infuriating. "I'm here." Xiao Mu roared, and she stuck another teleportation talisman on herself, leaving eldest Qin and the others, who were chasing after her, in the dust. Situyi's mouth twitched, and he couldn't resist rolling his eyes. "I think that girl is having a lot of fun. What's going on?" Liang Qingqing was exasperated. "Are we still going to continue chasing?" Chapter 13-14. After her, Situ-yi said with a nod. There was a group of people with unknown intentions chasing after Jojo, so they naturally couldn't leave her alone. Student Arbor teleported in a big circle and sighed, feeling somewhat disappointed and frustrated. As expected, this teleportation talisman teleported randomly. She had tried teleporting so many times, but the location was never the same as before. Honestly speaking, she felt a little dizzy from the teleportation. Lousy talismans. Arbor put away a handful of talismans and stayed where she was. She calmly looked at Old Monkey's two companions as they ran toward her with malevolent expressions. These two people were both riding a gale wolf. She didn't know if they were uniformly equipped by the higher-ups. This kind of gale wolf was the most common mystic beast. Its specialty was that it ran fast and generally didn't have high attack power. Arbor winked at the two people mockingly. With a slight movement of her fingers, an imperial thunder barrier enveloped the two people. Old Monkey, who was chasing over on a large black hound, shouted in alarm when he saw this from afar, "Get out of the way." But it was already too late. The imperial thunder barrier enveloped the two people's figures and immediately activated a series of crackling thunder and lightning. The well-shaped lightning cut the two people into small pieces in a matter of minutes. Arbor expressionlessly stood outside the imperial thunder barrier and shook her head. "It's quite disgusting. You're the one who fucking made it disgusting." Old Monkey's eyes were brimming with intertwining fury, and he roared, "Go!" The remaining dozen or so people of unknown origins all mounted gale wolves and rushed toward Arbor at an extremely fast speed. A trace of viciousness faintly appeared in Arbor's eyes. When those people were only a meter away from her, she suddenly leaped up and flashed slightly in midair. Two profound armaments appeared in her left and right hands. "Damn girl, you have a lot of good stuff in your hands." Old Monkey sneered and firmly locked onto her with his spiritual perception. "But it's a reckless waste of natural resources in your hands. You're just a minor level 9 mystic cultivator, so you have no use for them at all." Boom! Boom! What? Old Monkey and the others quickly lay down on the ground, but there were still two people who were close to Arbor. They were directly sent flying by the power of the profound artifact's self-explosion. They landed on the ground and spat out two mouthfuls of blood. She actually, Old Monkey and the others were so angry that they were trembling. This wretched lass who was recklessly wasting God's gift had actually casually caused the profound armament to self-explode. It was obvious how precious each of these profound armaments were. How many people spent their entire lives chasing after a profound armament, but they could not get it. And she actually used it as a joke. Was this something a human could do? He was even richer than the nouveau riche. While Old Monkey and the others were dumbfounded, Arbor waved his hand, and the translucent shadow of the defensive thunder barrier enveloped the other two. This time, Arbor didn't immediately open the defensive thunder barrier to attack. Instead, he sent down a ferocious spiritual sense, which directly rushed into the two's consciousness and began to seize their inner worlds. Ah! Ah! Two cries of different pitches came from inside the defensive thunder barrier. Old Monkey came back to his senses in shock and hastily said furiously, "Attack! Attack! Focus fire!" Kill this wretched lass for me. This wretched lass was too arrogant. Her entire body was filled with treasures. It simply couldn't make people angrier. At this time, a dense oppressive aura exploded from Arbor's body. All the beasts felt this oppressive aura, and those Gale wolves trembled as they lay down on the ground. Even the large black dog under Old Monkey's but also curled up like a kitten after struggling twice. Chapter 13-15. Previously, it was precisely because of the interweaving of the two sacred beast auras. That was why Pundit Zhao and the other two didn't dare to release their mystic beasts when fighting Arbor. Because they felt that it was useless to release them, and that they would only be suppressed in vain. At that time, if their mystic beasts were the first to be injured, the unlucky ones would be their masters who would suffer a backlash. This situation was extremely bad. And now, Old Monkey and the others felt a sense of danger pouncing on them. Their mystic beasts were suppressed by the other party's sacred beast aura to the point that they couldn't move. This caused Old Monkey to be both terrified and angry out of humiliation. It was also their fault for not making things clear before. They always thought that dealing with a little girl from the lower realm with no background would be a very easy matter. Damn it, they didn't expect that this damned girl would have so many treasures on her. No wonder the higher-ups valued her so much and gave a death order to deal with her as soon as possible. If she was allowed to develop in this state, no one could predict how far she would grow in the end. Old Monkey closed his eyes and coldly shouted, "Everyone move aside." His eyes narrowed slightly, and an invisible force condensed in his conscious like a whirling storm. He didn't believe that he couldn't deal with the damned girl in front of him with his level 2 spiritual sense. That's right, he was a great spiritual master suppressed to level 15 mystic realm, and Old Monkey's spiritual sense had just entered the level 2 realm 2 days ago. Among all the people who came with him, his spiritual sense was extremely high, which was extremely rare. The damned girl in front of him was merely a level 9 mystic cultivator. She relied on the numerous treasures on her to be so impudent in front of them for so long. Now, he wanted to destroy her conscience with one strike and turn her into a fool for the rest of her life. This way, he would complete the mission assigned by the higher-ups, completely destroy Arbor. Old Monkey was slightly excited at the thought of the bountiful reward. Be careful, Old Monkey, his partner reminded. He kept feeling that the girl in front of him was rather strange. They had so many spiritual realm experts chasing a level 9 mystic realm girl, but they actually spent so much fucking effort and couldn't do anything to her after so long. It could be seen that this person was extremely strange. Old Monkey kicked the big black dog under it. Unfortunately, that black dog had already been firmly suppressed by the phoenix egg's might and didn't dare to move recklessly. It lowered its head and hugged itself. Old Monkey got angry when he saw this. He kicked the big black dog's stomach and snorted, "Useless thing." Subsequently, he simply gave up on that black dog and leaped towards Xiao Mu himself. He just didn't believe that this damned girl would be able to block the full force of his spiritual sense attack. Old Monkey concluded that his spiritual sense attack was ineffective against Arbor because it was just a probing attack and didn't go all out. Just like now, as long as he used all his strength, he would definitely be able to take down that damned girl. Viciousness shot out of Old Monkey's eyes, and he launched a spiritual conscious attack at Xiao Mu's conscious without warning. This time, Xiao Mu had made preparations beforehand. At the same time that she activated her defensive barrier, she had also condensed a spiritual conscious in her conscious. They were just waiting for that guy to walk right into their trap. The moment Old Monkey's spiritual sense rushed in, it was intercepted by the golden talisman jade tome without any surprise. Arbor took advantage of the situation and directly launched a spiritual sense attack. It ruthlessly tore apart and penetrated Old Monkey's spiritual sense, and all of it was sent flying back. Chapter 13-16. This wave of counterattack came swiftly and ruthlessly, directly charging back into the depths of Old Monkey's conscious. Old Monkey had no time to defend against this spiritual sense attack at all. It was as if a sharp blade had pierced into the depths of his consciousness, tearing a wide crack in it. Old Monkey only had time to let out a blood-curdling scream before his eyes rolled back. He then fell backward and crashed heavily onto the ground. This spiritual sense attack was clearly more ferocious than the previous probing attack. Arbor also slowly grasped the crux of spiritual sense attacks from this. This vulgar man called Old Monkey would probably discover that he had completely turned into an idiot when he woke up. A small shrimp with level 2 spiritual sense dared to attack her, humph. She had level 3 spiritual sense. Crushing a small level 2 was too easy. Old Monkey suddenly fell to the ground and fainted, frightening the others. They simply didn't dare to believe that Old Monkey actually fell just like that. Their gazes toward Arbor also carried a trace of bewilderment. Truly strange. Old Monkey's mental strength could be considered top-notch among them. An expert with level 2 spiritual sense was actually knocked down by a small level 9 mystic cultivator's mental attack. Who would believe this if they told others? Old Monkey's partner immediately bellowed in his daze, "Everyone, pay attention. This lass isn't some level 9 mystic cultivator at all." This bunch of slow-witted fellows finally realized that something was amiss. A small level 9 mystic cultivator could knock down a proper spiritual cultivator with her spiritual sense. How was this possible? It was very obvious that the other party was relying on some kind of spiritual item or treasure to conceal her strength in front of them. A bunch of trash. I sent so many of you, but you can't even deal with a little lass. A sinister voice carrying an endless chill assaulted them. Arbor's pupils contracted slightly, and she abruptly turned her head. Her entire body burst forth with faint water spiritual energy, and a water spiritual barrier instantly enveloped her entire body. Following that sinister voice, water power surged toward her like a monstrous wave. Bang! The little guy slid in his water spirit barrier, and his little hands and feet rolled in the water spirit barrier. Then, he was sent flying by the force of the incoming person. Old Monkey's companions, who had suffered a setback earlier, saw their boss send that damned girl flying as soon as he made a move. Their morale was immediately boosted. They waved their arms and shouted, "Brother 2 is mighty! Brother 2 is mighty!" Boom! Xiao Mu was struck headfirst by that sky-toppling wave, and she was buried in a shallow pit with the water spiritual barrier over her head. Damn it! This person actually sent her flying. Was there any justice in this world? Although she wasn't injured, she had been sent flying. She had been sent flying. A level 6 spiritual water guy was actually able to control such a huge amount of water mist. As for her, she only had 5 thin streams of water. She had completely lost her face. This was the difference between them. Putting aside the fact that holy water could crush all spiritual water below level 9 spiritual water, it was very obvious that the other party's thigh was thicker than hers. Even if the level of the spiritual water he used was worlds apart from hers, it was too bad that the other party was stronger in actual combat. Arbor adjusted her state of mind and immediately flipped out of the pit. She looked at that person with a stoic face. The person called Brother 2 was an old man in his 60s. Half of his face was dark as he coldly glanced over. Chapter 13-17. From the looks of it, he was holding his head high and looking down on everything with disdain. It was truly impressive. Again. Arbor moved its little arms and legs inside the water spirit barrier and charged toward Brother 2 with a whoosh. How can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? With one hand behind his back, Brother 2 fiercely struck out a palm at Arbor. A monstrous wave surged out from the center of his palm. It was truly an extremely powerful water spirit energy. Bang! The little fellow was once again hit by this huge wave. It somersaulted inside the water spirit barrier and was once again sent flying. It fell headfirst into another shallow pit. Our dear Qiao Mu's legs swayed. With a push of her hands, she immediately turned around and charged toward Brother Two again. Hey, can I ask? Bang! How can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? Hey, can I? Bang, bang, how can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? Hey, can I? Bang! Dot. Huff, huff, huff. Brother Two bent over and panted heavily. When eldest Qin and the others finally found Arbor, they saw this strange scene. There was a semicircle on the field. The little fellow was clearly fighting against a dozen people, but the situation was somewhat strange. Those dozen people looked as if they had eaten feces. Their faces were the yellow color of feces. As for the old man standing in the middle of the semicircle, his face was as white as a sheet of paper, and he was panting heavily through his nostrils. Fuck, when you struck out with the same palm 13 times in a row and said the same sentence, light of a grain of rice, and the little person you regarded as an ant was still alive and kicking inside the water spirit barrier, you suddenly felt that life was hopeless. When this Brother Two looked up and saw Arbor bouncing toward him while encased in the water spirit barrier, he couldn't help but raise his palm out of conditioned reflex. This slap actually didn't produce any spiritual energy. Fuck, his spiritual energy was exhausted. He had already drunk 2 bottles of spirit-returning liquid. This kind of spirit-returning liquid was sold at an extremely high price in the 6 prefectures. After drinking 2 bottles in a row, he touched his pocket and found that there was nothing left. Hey, let me finish what I want to say. Arbor finally found a chance to speak. Was there something wrong with this guy? He had tried to say a few words to him several times, but in the end, he was sent flying as soon as he tried. She squatted inside the water spirit barrier, and raised one of her small white hands in a slightly distressed manner, allowing 5 streams of water to drill between her fingers like thin snakes. Hey, big bro, let me ask you something. As soon as Arbor opened his mouth, eldest Qin's group couldn't help but twitch their mouths. How did you cultivate your water spiritual energy to such a large extent? Tell me, why is my water spirit so small? She asked in distress. If Jian Jian was awake, she could rely on Jian Jian to support her and use a big move like water curtain shrouding the heavens, but it could only be used once. She couldn't even create a decent water ball by herself. Controlling the earth spirit and wood spirit was slightly better. At least when the earth spirit was flipped over, it could form a shallow layer of soil. The wood spirit, on the other hand, was more adept at controlling it. The use of the vine whip had basically reached the point of perfection. Could it be that she had disliked little water before, so her control wasn't very good now? Arbor muttered in his heart and thought suspiciously. Brother Two, that I don't want to discuss the water spirit with you. On the side, eldest Qin couldn't help but burst out laughing after holding back for a while. Chapter 13:18. Arbor blinked at the dark-faced big brother through the water spirit barrier. Why is it so small? She seemed to be talking to herself, but also seemed to be in a hurry to find the big brother to clear her doubts. She couldn't help but shake her little hand. The water shuttled back and forth around her fingers, but it didn't fall to the ground. Such fine control of the water spirit. She still not satisfied. It looked like Brother Two was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. Eldest Qin couldn't help but laugh out loud first. Jojo, you haven't stepped into the spirit realm yet. He couldn't help but want to remind this strange little fellow. Strictly speaking, you're not a spirit master. The water spirit energy you're using is all due to good fortune. When Arbor heard this, she immediately wilted. Oh, she forgot about this. Brother Two already had thoughts of retreating. He felt that the current situation was very unfavorable for them. He gave a look to the person beside him, and the group was about to retreat. Arbor suddenly rushed up and threw a punch of mystic energy at Brother Two's head. Brother Two narrowed his eyes and crossed his fists in front of him to block. The mystic energy collision caused his entire body to sway slightly, but he didn't move at all. Of course, with his level 4 Spirit Master cultivation, he didn't fear the little fellow's mystic energy at all. How can an ant move a big tree? Brother Two sneered. Consider yourself lucky today. I'll let you off. Bang! He crossed his fists again, blocking the little fellow's fists flying at him at a rapid speed. How can an ant move a big tree? Bang! How can an ant move a big tree? Brother Two staggered back 3 steps, his face flushed red. Fuck, are you done yet? Everyone, dot. Why did they feel this was inexplicably funny? After Arbor's 3 punches forced Brother Two back several steps, she took a deep breath and unceasingly transferred the mystic energy in her branch meridians. She once again threw punch after punch at Brother Tuesday. Every punch was wrapped in level 14 mystic energy. Bang, 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 she threw them at Brother Tuesday. You hit me 13 times before, so I must return 26 punches to you. Courtesy demands reciprocity. Dong 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 dong. A gust of wind from the fists was like a shadow, exploding like thunder and lightning. Everyone could only see the fists falling down like raindrops. At first, they could still see the little person twisting and turning inside the water barrier, jumping up and down. Following the heavy fist shadows, strong winds blew, and everyone was horrified to find that they couldn't even catch the trajectory of her movement. This guy seemed to be dancing a funny dance, but in fact, he was constantly punching and stepping, dodging and punching again. His speed was so fast that it made everyone present speechless. After a flurry of punches, no one could even tell if she had actually landed 26 punches or not. She swayed and took a few steps back. She made a gesture of gathering her chi in her dantian and pressing her hand down. She puffed up her cheeks and exhaled. Suddenly, she raised her chin and scolded, "How can the light of a firefly compete with the splendor of the sun and moon?" Everyone was speechless. Pooh! It was unknown who suddenly burst out laughing, but this laughter uncontrollably spread to the entire 100-man team. Why do I find this kid so funny that when they took a closer look, they couldn't help but be a little shocked while amused. That unlucky Brother Two was actually beaten into a pit by the little fellow's 26 punches. He laid there stiffly and couldn't move for a long time. Chapter 13-19. Even Brother Two himself couldn't understand. He was clearly such a strong level 4 spiritual master, so how could he be beaten into a pit by a mystic cultivator girl? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem possible. Unless this girl had consumed some spirit medicine beforehand. When normal people used 100% mystic energy to punch a few times, they would feel that their mystic energy was greatly depleted. Conservatively speaking, shouldn't they use it sparingly? But this girl? She punched 26 consecutive times that it didn't seem like it was just that. Brother Two himself didn't even count how many times this girl had punched him. Every punch used 100% of his profound energy. Just where did this demon come from? Wouldn't Mystic Realm be depleted after using up so much mystic energy? Who would dare to expend their Mystic Realm like this? Weren't they afraid that their Mystic Realm would crack and their mystic meridians would be damaged, which would affect their future cultivation? He could now understand Old Monkey's feelings back then. It wasn't that Old Monkey didn't want to kill this girl, right? It was just that he didn't have the strength, just like how he was right now. He released his spirit beast, Fire Spirit Sparrow. The moment it appeared, it was restrained by the mysterious holy beast pressure on the girl's body. Right now, it only dared to crouch in a corner and tremble. How could it have any thoughts of fighting? This girl exuded a strange aura from head to toe, and she looked very evil. None of Old Monkey's companions could laugh at this time. They stared blankly as the girl lifted Brother Two out of the pit and tightly clasped his neck with her fingers. "Let me ask you something." Cough. Brother Two only felt that his throat was very dry, and his arms drooped weakly. He felt that his arms were already crippled from continuously blocking the girl's punches just now. "Where is Fan Chioha?" The girl's voice sounded crisp, but even so, it still gave people an inexplicable chill. "Where is Fan Chioha?" She forced these words out from between her teeth. Every word made people feel a bone-piercing chill from the depths of their bones. "Fan Chioha." Cough, cough, cough. Brother Two shook his head, but in the next second, he felt a sharp pain from one of his arms. The girl twisted his left arm without a trace of pity in her eyes. She continued to ask icily, "Where did you hide Fan Chioha?" I really didn't hide him. He is Fan. Ugh. Before Brother Two could finish his sentence, an arrow shot from the sky and pierced his back. His eyes were wide open, and his face was filled with disbelief. Just like that, he fell face first into the deep pit. Xiao Mu felt her hair stand on end, and she abruptly turned her head away. Eldest Qin's terrified cry of, "Jojo, be careful," reached his ears. Arbor instantly felt his body lighten. His small body that was wrapped in a water spiritual barrier was instantly clamped by a pair of claws. With a whoosh, he was sent flying into the sky. At the same time, Mo Lien and Duan Yu, who had sensed the auras of Arbor and the others, swiftly moved over. When he saw the scene in front of him, his expression changed and he shouted, "Jojo." The two people chased after her in bewilderment. They didn't even have time to greet Situ Yi and the rest before their figures swiftly flitted through the crowd one after the other, chasing after Xiao Mu in the direction that she had disappeared in. Xiao Mu's shoulder was grabbed by a black double-headed crow, and it flew higher and higher while carrying her. A pair of calves swayed back and forth inside the water spiritual barrier. Arbor's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes were solemn. There's still 3 more chapters. You don't have to wait for me, it's almost midnight. Chapter 13:20. Flying at high altitudes didn't intimidate her at all. In any case, she had the protection of the water spirit barrier. No matter how high she flew, the astral winds couldn't rip her apart. At this moment, she could clearly see that a middle-aged woman with a black veil was sitting on the back of the two-headed crow. Fan Chioha was sitting on the woman's back, grinning at her. Arbor felt a slight stinging pain in her eyes, as though blood was seeping out. She seemed to have vaguely seen this middle-aged woman in her dreams. However, she couldn't remember who she was. That black veil of the same style and color was enough to prove that she was the woman who had appeared in the abandoned hut in the Mystic Beast Forest. It was this malicious middle-aged woman who had killed the poison-tailed butterfly she had sent to follow Fan Chioha. How annoying! Arbor's icy gaze swept over the woman and Fan Chioha behind her. She curled her lips at Fan Chioha, revealing a spurious sneer. It didn't look like a smile. Fan Chioha was alarmed. For some reason, he felt that the young lady in front of him didn't have this kind of facial paralysis when she smiled from the bottom of her heart. Whoosh, whoosh. The two-headed crow let out a hoarse cry and flapped its wings, pulling Arbor along as it flew straight out of the city lord's manor. They flew all the way to a remote area of Jiaozhong base before dropping her down. In front of them was a dilapidated temple entrance. 2 or 3 corpses lay haphazardly on the ground, their faces unrecognizable. When Arbor landed beside them, these suddenly moved, These corpses suddenly moved, and they abruptly raised their rotting hands to grab Xiao Mu. Arbor dodged with a sway and didn't even look at them, even though these corpses were standing up shakily from the ground and gathering toward her as though they had smelled raw meat. Kiki. The middle-aged woman let out a distorted laugh. It didn't seem like her real voice, but rather like a voice that had been altered with drugs. "Young lady, you're so brave, the middle-aged woman said with a smile. You're not the least bit frightened when facing me alone. As expected, you're quite something. Arbor shut herself in the water spirit barrier and let the corpse hags pounce on her and scratch her through the water spirit barrier. It was extremely funny. It was like looking at a piece of fat meat in front of his eyes. He could almost eat it with his mouth open, but in reality, he couldn't touch it at all. He could only stare anxiously. Arbor glanced at her. You think you can torture me to death with these things? After the series of battles just now, only a fool would not understand how strong she was. If this woman had mindlessly brought her here just to lock her up with the zombies, then she would look down on her. Because these little toys couldn't kill her at all. I admit that you are very strong. The middle-aged woman narrowed her eyes and looked at her with a smile. But this is far from enough. This world is far more vast than what you see. There are some people in this world you can't afford to offend. Like you. Arbor mocked. The middle-aged woman wasn't angered by her. Instead, she nodded. Like me. Suddenly, a spiraling fire dragon appeared behind her. Its flying claws rose up, and the dragon's roar reverberated. She thought she would see Arbor's face reveal a look of horror. However, how could Arbor, who had seen the physical golden dragon true body, be intimidated by a mere virtual fire dragon? Chapter 13:21. She only swiftly covered her body with layer after layer of water spirit shields. When 4 layers of water spirit shields covered her body, a layer of agitation appeared in Fan Chilha's eyes. Her body is very strange. Capture her alive. Still want to capture me for research? The corner of Arbor's mouth cracked into a sinister smile. In the blink of an eye, he moved ahead of the others. She ferociously punched out with her level 14 mystic energy, and conveniently swiped out that feral. A line of fire followed. But in reality, she was only stalling for time. The current situation was rather dangerous. The woman in front of her should be a great spiritual master. Compared to that level 4 spiritual master brother too, her aura was more than just a little bit stronger. The middle-aged woman was very strong. However, she would never admit that she was weak. The world was so big that it was hard for us to imagine it. But any path in the world was man-made, one step at a time. Because the entire world was under our feet. Arbor's punch was instantly devoured by the fire dragon. Fan Chilha's eyes were wide open, and he had a trace of an excited smile. He thought that he could see Arbor being captured by the middle-aged woman in one move. But the truth proved that this was only his imagination. Fan Chilha's expression stiffened, and he coldly watched Arbor's 4 layers of water spirit shields block the fire dragon. The fire dragon broke through Arbor's first layer of water spirit shield, the second layer. When it reached the 3rd layer, it was already somewhat powerless. After 2 punches, it softly turned into a puff of red ash, disappearing in front of everyone. Arbor's mystic energy had actually been greatly depleted from the continuous battles. Especially when she had continuously punched that brother 236 times in order to intimidate Old Monkey's group of people. Cough cough, that's right. Although she had shouted 26 punches, she had actually hit him 36 times. So even when she was suspended in midair, she had been recovering the mystic energy in her body. Although she had not completely recovered, she had 3 more branch meridians than others, so she could cope for a while. She covered herself with 2 more water spirit shields. Inside the 4 layers of water spirit shields, she looked coldly at Fan Chilha and the middle-aged woman through the mist. Do you think 4 layers of water spirit barrier can save your life? You're too naive. Before the middle-aged woman finished speaking, Arbor rotated the defensive thunder barrier between his fingers, and a translucent barrier closed over the middle-aged woman's head. Be careful. The middle-aged woman hastily pulled Fan Chilha over in a flash, only to see the defensive thunder cover 4 to 5 corpse puppets in an instant. Within a few minutes, they were cut to pieces with lightning. Spiritual weapon. A trace of astonishment flashed through the middle-aged woman's eyes, but it only lasted for a second. An even thicker fire dragon appeared behind him, and a feathered fan appeared in his hand. With each flap, the thick fire dragon behind the woman seemed to have grown a little bigger. This should be a spirit artifact that boosts profound skills. Arbor's eyes flashed. He grabbed a vine as thick as a finger and held it tightly in his hand. This woman was going to use her ultimate move. The middle-aged woman let out an angry roar. She raised her hands, and that fire dragon actually split into two. With an unstoppable momentum, it charged in Arbor's direction. Arbor's pupils contracted. He wanted to dodge, but he found that his body was locked onto by the woman's spiritual sense, and he couldn't move at all. Chapter 1322. This woman's spiritual sense should be about the same as hers, or maybe even half a level stronger than hers. This was the advantage of having a strong spiritual sense. It could lock onto the target immediately and prevent them from moving an inch. Of course, this required a lot of spiritual sense and full concentration. In a battle, it also required a lot of spiritual sense to lock onto the target continuously. Just like now, Arbor wanted to move, but the middle-aged woman locked onto her and didn't let her move. Then, in the time it took to take a breath, two fire dragons rushed in front of her side by side. They crashed into her water spirit barrier with a loud bang. She was hit by a wave of air and fell backwards on the ground. She could clearly feel the water spirit barrier resisting the two fire dragons, making scraping sounds. Chi-chi, the first water spirit shield cracked from the middle and collapsed in an instant. Then, the second, the third. The fourth. Xiao Mu used her spiritual conscious to barely undo the middle-aged woman's spiritual conscious lock and dodged to the side. Although she swiftly conjured up a water spiritual barrier, the left side of her waist was still struck by one of the fire dragon's tails before she could do so. A huge force instantly sent her flying. The black double-headed crow was like a king looking down on all living things. It suddenly opened its mouth and let out a mute sound wave attack. When Arbor came into contact with this sound wave at close range, her water spirit barrier immediately shattered with a bang. A trace of blood fell from the corner of her mouth. Arbor didn't have time to wipe it off. She threw a wood spirit barrier at her and dodged to the side. After 2 attacks, she actually didn't kill this stinky girl on the spot. A trace of anger and dissatisfaction flitted through the middle-aged woman's eyes. She immediately swung her sleeves and launched the third fire spirit barrier attack. This damned girl set up 4 layers of water spirit barrier each time. Could it be that she didn't use up any spiritual energy? Mystic Guiding Talisman Array. Arbor shouted angrily. Don't let her use the talisman. Fan Chilha's eyelids twitched. The moment Arbor set up the Mystic Guiding Talisman Array, she took out a bunch of talismans without even looking. She opened them all in one breath and threw them in the direction of the middle-aged woman. Blue Attack Talismans. There were a total of 30 to 40 blue offensive talismans, and each talisman had 70% of the owner's profound strength. Although it was not enough to injure the woman, it was enough to block her and buy him some time to catch his breath. There were zombies everywhere within a radius of dozens of miles. If he used the unreliable teleportation talisman, he would not know which corner he would teleport to. Arbor gritted his teeth and was about to use a teleportation talisman to teleport away. Suddenly, he saw the middle-aged woman shout angrily and emerge from the dozens of talismans, glaring at him with a red face. With a flick of her finger, 2 objects the size of glass beads appeared in her hand. Arbor's eyelids twitched. Could it be that this was a level higher than the profound energy bead? Spiritual energy bead? They were condensed by spirit masters when they were idle and used their spirit chi to deal with unexpected situations. These two spiritual energy beads contained an enormous amount of power. Even Arbor didn't dare to brace himself. What kind of joke was this? Although her spiritual sense was high, her cultivation had yet to break through to the spirit realm. Her physical body was even more pitifully weak. She vomited blood after being hit twice. Dodge! With a thought, she forcefully shook off the woman's spiritual sense lock and flew forward. She only heard the sound of wind whistling past her ears as the two spiritual energy beads attacked her from behind. Master! A voice like the sound of nature suddenly rang in her ears. Chio. Arbor was about to cry, fragmented sleep. Chapter 13:23. In such a dangerous situation, Chio's voice was truly like the sound of nature, causing Arbor to be moved to the point of crying. Quick, Chio. Can you fuse the heart of the forest secret realm in my inner world and the frigid pool inside it into Paradise Planet first? I'll need it later. In the blink of an eye, the two spiritual power pearls approached Arbor one after the other. Countless green vines and branches wrapped around Arbor, wrapping her into a cocoon in an instant. The two spiritual power pearls exploded beside her with two booms. The enormous energy waves flattened all the soil in this small area. A taut buzzing sound reverberated in the air for a long time. Arbor rolled on the ground, wrapped in a large circle of vines. She hastily flipped backward, got up, and ran. Little master, I'll drag you into Paradise Planet to hide first. Chio said anxiously. No. I won't retreat. A faint determination flitted across Arbor's eyes. If she retreated into Paradise Planet like a tortoise whenever she encountered trouble, then she could forget about making any major breakthroughs or making any significant progress in this lifetime. Moreover, she didn't want to expose such an important thing like Paradise Planet to her two enemies at all. Why should she retreat? She wasn't at the end of her rope yet. And even if she was at the end of her rope, it didn't mean she had no way out. She couldn't develop the habit of retreating whenever she encountered danger. She had to bravely advance. With a taut little stoic face, Arbor said again, Quick, Chio, listen to me. Take out the thing in the heart of the forest secret realm and fuse it with Paradise Planet first. Yes. Chio understood his little master too well. She was a strong-willed person to begin with. Under these circumstances, it was impossible for her to retreat. Since that was the case, he had to do everything possible to assist her. His master must have her reasons for doing this. Indeed, cultivators like them couldn't develop a habit of retreating whenever they encountered danger. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to achieve great things in the future. It hurts a bit, master. Although he wasn't fusing the entire heart of the forest secret realm into his master's Dantian, Paradise Planet was going to change. However, now that Paradise Planet was going to be modified, it would naturally affect its master. Sure. Arbor carried a large ball of green vine shield on her back, and as she flew forward, the profound guiding talisman array was also endlessly absorbing the profound energy between heaven and earth, slowly replenishing her profound domain. When Chio fused the frigid pond in the heart of the forest secret realm into Paradise Planet, Arbor felt his Dantian prickling. However, this pain was much lighter than the pain he felt when the Paradise Planet merged with his flesh and blood. She just had to grit her teeth and get through it. 18 defensive talismans were flung around her body, blocking the green vines outside the protection, which would be able to withstand the middle-aged woman's attack first. The middle-aged woman's face under the black veil had already become extremely grave and ugly. She couldn't believe that she still hadn't won over the young lady in front of her after such a long time. Fan Chioha was also anxious. He followed the middle-aged woman to besiege Arbor. However, it would have been better if he hadn't made a move. Once he made a move, he was simply adding to the chaos and holding them back. When Arbor saw this, big brother, she threw all the blue attack talismans at him. Fan Chilha wasn't the middle-aged woman, this great spiritualist. If he received so many blue attack talismans, he would definitely die. Be careful. The middle-aged woman pulled him aside. Chapter 1324. A vicious glint flitted across her face under the black veil, and she berated, "Little vicious woman, you're really vicious." Arbor couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with her. This middle-aged woman was very powerful and didn't seem to have any emotional fluctuations during the fight. This kind of person was much harder to deal with than those who showed their emotions on the surface. This middle-aged woman could be considered a character, but unfortunately, she was destined to be buried with Fan Chilha today. Arbor's eyes narrowed coldly, and she suddenly fished out the heart of the forest mystic realm that little tree had finished fusing. In this forest mystic realm, other than the frigid pool, only Senior Xuanji's hut needed to be fused. The other messy stones and mud were of no use. At this moment, other than the mystic energy that filled the heart of the mystic realm, there was basically nothing left. Arbor lifted her eyelids and glanced in the direction of the middle-aged woman. Instead of retreating, she stepped on the ground and sprinted toward the two people. The woman's eyes under the black veil moved quietly, and her brows knitted involuntarily. A terrifying sense of crisis suddenly surfaced in her heart. Not good. This wretched girl probably had some special method to deal with them. The middle-aged woman grabbed Fan Chilha's arm and gazed at Xiao Mu. She saw Xiao Mu abruptly toss a round object in her hand at them, and it exploded in an instant. Arbor's body suddenly floated into the air. The middle-aged woman's eyes were instantly filled with the light of exploding mystic energy. The mystic light that filled the sky and covered the earth made the two of them seem to be at the center of the explosion. Ah! The middle-aged woman let out a tragic roar. Before the violent mystic energy fluctuations completely cut her and Fan Chilha apart, she threw out a jade talisman array made up of 24 jade talismans. In an instant, the two people's figures quickly retreated from the center of the mystic energy explosion. Arbor, who was suspended in midair and looking down coldly at the rolling rubble and cracked soil, curled her lips into a cold smile. Transportation Talisman Array. It was a transportation talisman array. This woman actually had a transportation talisman array made up of 24 jade talismans. This kind of teleportation glyph array was very difficult to draw, not to mention that it was drawn by a jade talisman. It was not sold on the market at all. In this way, he was completely sure that this woman was definitely related to the Divine Prefecture's Mu clan. Was she from the Mu family of the Divine Land? Could it be that 7th Master Mu was the one who attacked her? Was it her rejection that made him angry out of humiliation? For people like them who lived high and mighty in the upper 3 continents, being rejected by a small shrimp from a small lower star region was an extremely embarrassing thing. Since he couldn't obtain the young genius of the clan, he might as well destroy him. Was that what he meant? Arbor's eyes instantly became extremely cold, revealing a sky full of flames and monstrous hatred. Why should she be killed by someone else? His fists were already clenched tightly. Even with such an excellent opportunity, he still couldn't kill Fan Chilha. She hated it. After landing on the ground with a whoosh, Xiao Mu only saw a broken leg lying on the ground. This was a man's leg. From the top of the knee to the sole of the foot, along with that black boot, it had all been cut open by profound energy. Fan Chilha lost a leg. But for Arbor, this was really too small a price to pay. She actually let him escape. Arbor's cold little face contained a trace of harshness. Chapter 1325. Xiao Mu stood there with a cold face, and sand billowed everywhere as they tumbled down. Smoke and dust filled the air. The entire city lord's manor couldn't withstand the power of the heart of the secret realm's explosion. It slowly turned to sand and gradually turned to ash. At this moment, a metal chain suddenly emerged from the corner of the wall and flung towards Arbor's arm. Croak. A large-mouthed toad emerged from the base of the wall and spat a mouthful of venom at Arbor. Arbor glanced at it coldly and sprinkled a cloud of powder with her hand, evaporating the venom with a hiss. She wrapped herself in a wood spirit shield and grabbed at the corner of the wall. Her small hand covered in a Vajra talisman stabbed into someone's shoulder, eliciting a pained howl. Bang! A young man was dragged out from behind the wall by Arbor and landed directly at Arbor's feet. He was firmly bound by a green vine that she flung out, and he let out another cry of pain. This was the young man who had escaped with the woman from Ani Manor. Arbor glanced around and saw Guan Ying in the corner of the wall, frantically abandoning her companions and fleeing for her life. That large-mouthed toad should be Guan Ying's mystic beast. When it saw its master flee, it turned into a streak of light and disappeared into the mystic beast space. What a pitiful worm, Arbor said coldly. Your teammates abandoned you. Don't kill me, don't kill me. The young man's eyes were filled with terror, and a strong hatred for Guan Ying emerged from the bottom of his heart. His original intention was that this little girl wasn't to be trifled with. Since Reverend Zhao was dead, they should hurry and find a chance to escape. Who knew that Guan Ying coveted the little girl's secrets and was still unwilling to let go of the heart of Xuanji? She insisted on dragging him over to take a look. Just take a look, but she suddenly attacked the girl. She couldn't beat the others and implicated him. She even fled on her own. No matter how he looked at it, he felt wronged. That brat from the Fan family said that you have the heart of Xuanji. Guan Ying, Guan Ying. She wants it. No, it's not my fault, it's Guan Ying. Ani Prefecture's 4th Miss, Guan Ying, she wants the Xuanji core. She wants to kill you. Ah. The young man only felt waves of pain assaulting the depths of his consciousness. An extremely terrifying feeling of being peeled off came from within. Something extremely important was being extracted from his body. It was extremely terrifying. Ah! The young man cried out as he watched the gate to his inner world being forcibly torn open by someone's spiritual sense. No, it was impossible. In this world, how could there be someone who could take away another person's inner world? With a series of crackling noises, the young man was perplexed to find that the things that originally existed in his inner world were all being emptied out. Ah! His inner world. Those who covet other people's things will eventually taste their own medicine. Arbor stepped on his back. Speak, what's the relationship between an E-prefecture and that middle-aged woman? Are they the same? The young man had already fainted from the pain. Now that she stepped on his spine, his entire body trembled, and he became a bit more awake. Knowing that he would meet his end here today no matter what, the young man steeled his heart and simply said, "You, just kill me, kill me. I only ask for a quick death." Humph, Arbor snorted coldly. Answer me honestly. I'll give you a quick death. No, I don't know her. The young man groaned. Chapter 1326. The young man spat out a large amount of blood as he shook his head. No, I don't know them. We didn't come together. Sure enough, the two groups weren't on the same side. Consecrated Zhao and Guan Ying from Ani Prefecture must have gotten the information from the Fan clan and guessed that the Xuanji core was in her possession. They came here to obtain the Xuanji core from her, but they didn't expect to lose 2 of their people here. Only Guan Ying managed to escape. As for Old Monkey and Brother Two's group that the middle-aged woman brought along, they were very likely from the Mu clan of the Divine Province. Their goal was to eliminate her, the little genius. Mu Laochi did it? A venomous glint flitted through Arbor's eyes. No matter who did it, she absolutely wouldn't let this matter rest. They chased after her the entire way for fun, and they still wanted her to admit defeat? In his dreams of 1,000 autumns. As for Fan Qiuhe, the two of them were probably related since that middle-aged woman was so protective of him. At first, Fan Qiuhe only wanted to borrow the Ani Prefecture trio's strength to kill her at Jiaozhong base. Later, he discovered that the Ani Prefecture trio was useless, so he notified that middle-aged woman. As Arbor thought this, she raised her hand to pound her aching head. She couldn't recall where she had seen this middle-aged woman before. Could it be that she really saw this middle-aged woman in her previous life? Was it in Fan Qiuhe's sealed laboratory? Jojo! An anxious shout interrupted her thoughts. Arbor blinked and turned to look. She saw Mo Lien leaping toward her, followed by Duanyu, eldest Qin, and 100 others. They were escorting a group of wilted old monkey companions. It seemed like Mo Lien and the others had taken action and captured these little spiritual cultivators. Arbor's eyes flashed, and she immediately flitted toward Mo Lien, landing in the man's arms. Jojo, are you alright? What was that vibration just now? We heard it from far away. Let me see. Are you injured? Don't worry. As long as I'm here, nothing will happen to Master. A slender little treant lay on Arbor's shoulder and shook its head at Mo Lien. Only then did Mo Lien see the tiny treant. She heaved a sigh of relief and said, "The tiny treant is out." Yes. Arbor nodded. If it wasn't for Sapling's help, I'm afraid I would have suffered a great loss this time. It's nothing serious. It's just that my body is too weak. Arbor frowned. It seemed that he had to try to temper his body after returning to the capital. Mo Lien reached out to hold her, but she raised her hand to check her pulse instead. Why is your breath a little irregular? Ah, it's nothing. It's the heavenly law. Some people have angered the heavenly law, so it's good enough that they can break free, Duanyu teased as he also walked over. Arbor cast a sidelong glance at Mo Lien. What kind of incredible power did you use? Mo Lien threw Duanyu a cold glance before turning to say to Arbor, "It's fine now. Don't worry, I'll take care of your injuries right now." Duanyu quickly walked up and sized up Arbor. Jojo, you're injured. You were the one who caused that huge commotion just now. Arbor nodded. I detonated the heart of the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm. I originally wanted to keep Fan Qiuhe and a middle-aged woman here forever, but who knew that they would escape? The two men couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. Jojo actually detonated a mystic domain so generously. No wonder the entire city lord's estate turned into a puff of ash in such a huge quake. Chapter 1327. It's good that you captured these people. I'm going to ask them something. After speaking with the two, Arbor immediately walked towards eldest Qin and the others. Everyone crowded around and asked questions, but Arbor waved her hand to indicate that she was fine before walking to eldest Qin's side. Before eldest Qin could ask, the little fellow ruthlessly kicked a person's head. Her voice was as cold as ice as she asked, "Are you people from the Divine Province's Mu clan?" Cough, cough, cough. That person was Old Monkey's sworn brother, but he was quite stubborn. After Arbor kicked him and punched him twice, he still didn't say a word other than coughing. Is there any way to make them talk? Arbor turned to look at Mo Lien. Her dictum talisman was completely useless against this person whose cultivation was much higher than hers. If they were both in the mystic realm, perhaps she could give it a try. However, this person's cultivation was around the third level of the spiritual realm, much higher than hers. The dictum talisman was ineffective against him, so it was useless even if she used it. As for those repulsive fellows beside him, they were all clamoring for mercy before she could even hit them. They said a lot of fawning and begging words, so they didn't seem like people who understood the truth. Search his soul. It's simple and convenient. Eldest Qin tugged at the corner of his mouth, revealing a cold smile. I'll search him. Duanyu volunteered, but was stopped by Mo Lien. No need. However, before they could finish arguing, that stubborn man was already trembling all over in fright. He couldn't help but shout, Don't search my soul." Arbor looked at them in confusion. She didn't understand what this soul search was. Look at how scared this person was. I'll talk, I'll tell you everything," that person hastily said, spilling everything he knew. "We're not from the Divine Province's Mu clan. We're disciples of the 6 prefectures continent's Clear Sky faction. That woman is called Fan Gu, our Clear Sky faction's vice-faction master. In the 6 prefectures continent, the Clear Sky sect can be considered a small mid-tier power, but we—" "Liar," Arbor interrupted him coldly. "She has a teleportation glyph formation made of 24 jade talismans. Even I wouldn't believe it if he wasn't from a talisman aristocratic family. Would you believe it?" Everyone shook their heads. 24 jade talismans or something of a transportation talisman array. Just from the sound of it, one could tell that it was a high-level talisman array. They had never seen such a thing on Seacombe planet before. "Yes, it's true, it's true." The man was so anxious that the sweat on his forehead slid down. This lowly one wouldn't dare to say anything false. Vice faction leader. Fan Gu has never talked about her past in front of us. As for those strange talismans on her body, some of us have asked her about them, but she never told us. "Miss, this operation was ordered by the vice sect leader. We are just a group of small fries carrying out the mission. Please be magnanimous and let us go. We promise that we will never harass you again. Only the dead will not disturb me." Arbor's cold voice made everyone's heart skip a beat. "Hand over all the black spirit jade in your inner worlds. Forget it, take out everything you have in your inner worlds." Arbor tilted her head and nodded at the man on the ground whose inner worlds had been stripped. "When I make my move, you will suffer even more." Chapter 1328. Black Spirit Jade. The pupils of the Clear Sky Sex group contracted slightly, practically not daring to believe their ears. What did she want? Black Spirit Jade? Something like Profound Spirit Jade, how could small fries like them possibly have it on them? Black Spirit Jade could replenish and raise the 5 spirits, and it was a good item for replenishing energy for divine beasts and above. But how could they have something like that? For one thing, their 5 spirits were very low level and couldn't be replenished. For another, they didn't have divine beasts that needed this. Moreover, Black Spirit Jade veins weren't visible everywhere. They were buried deep underground, and even if they used special tools to detect them, they might not be alive to dig them up, alright? This little girl wanted something so high-class the moment she opened her mouth. Where were they going to go? Ah. Among them, a few of the men with unwilling expressions were the first to feel a piercing pain in their consciousness. Their inner worlds instantly overturned, and it was as if it was raining, and things kept falling down with a pitter-patter. When the others saw their pained expressions, their hearts convulsed in fright, and they stared in horror at the stoic-faced little girl in front of them. "We will give everything." These people scrambled to be the first to dig out the items, regretting fervently in their hearts that they had followed the vice sect master to find trouble with this girl. Now, not only did they have to give away everything in their inner worlds, they couldn't even keep their lives. They wondered if there was a medicine for regret in this world. Brother Axe and the others were also staring blankly at this young crown prince consort. They really had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. They came to hunt down the crown princess, but not only did they have to hand over everything in their inner worlds, they even had to pay with their lives. After sifting through this pile of trash for half a day, Xiaomu finally found 2 pieces of black spirit jade and several stalks of black-rank medicinal herbs from the Clear Sky faction disciples' inner world. She didn't care for the rest. She pointed at the large pile of things on the ground. "You guys take it and divide it. Everyone!" A petite female mystic cultivator asked agitatedly, really, Crown Princess. The Crown Princess said that she wanted to give it to you, so just take it. Mo Lien waved her hand and asked them to move the things to the side. Situ Yi and Liang Qingqing didn't go up to share it. They had received the storage talismans from Arbor before, and the things inside were much better than this trash. Naturally, they didn't care for it. There seemed to be a lot of things, but with 100 people dividing them, each person did not get much. However, the process of dividing them was very lively and happy. Everyone felt that this trip was not in vain. Jojo, how should we deal with these people? Eldest Qin kicked the unlucky guy who had fallen to the ground after his inner world was taken away. Kill. Arbor didn't even blink. If it weren't for the fact that her current life was completely different from her previous one and that she had an endless number of trump cards, she wouldn't have been able to use them. Wouldn't he have been surrounded and chased all the way here and killed in this remote base? So, don't be unconvinced. Everything is fate. Who told them to have the intention to kill her? If she didn't kill them, was she going to let the tiger return to the mountain? She had to be vicious and merciless towards her enemies. Eldest Qin nodded and waved his hand, gesturing for several mystic cultivators to come forward and take care of them. Have you found the storehouse? Not yet. Duan Yu shook his head. With 2 consecutive huge explosions, I reckon that the nearby zombies will be attracted here. Arbor nodded. Continue searching. Chapter 1329. She tugged at Mo Lien's hand and pulled him to the side. I need to adjust my breathing for a bit. Alright, I'll watch over you here. Seeing her sit down, Mo Lien also found a slightly flatter rock to sit down beside her. The crumbling earth walls around them had already gradually stopped moving. The entire city lord's manor had now been reduced to rubble. Arbor turned her head and said softly to the little tray ant on her shoulder, Qiuqiu, integrate my other secret inheritance realm into the star domain. Alright. Qiuqiu loved doing this kind of thing the most. In the past, other than the main star, there were 4 other largest planets in Master's star domain. Each of them could completely surpass the vast area of Paradise Planet. But now, nothing could be opened. Fortunately, Master's cultivation had already risen to level 14, so he could do more things in the future. Master, you're already level 14. In the future, you'll be able to throw some small living animals into Paradise Planet yourself. The 2 people didn't have anything to say in front of Mo Lien, so they discussed Paradise Planet's matters in low voices. Is that so? Although Arbor's face was stoic, she was extremely happy in her heart. Qiuqiu seemed to have mentioned before that as long as her cultivation rose to level 13, she would be able to take animals into Paradise Planet. Now that she was a genuine level 14 profound realm, she could naturally do it. Master, you're awesome. During this period of time that Qiuqiu wasn't around, you didn't lag behind your cultivation at all and even soared so much. So amazing. Qiuqiu's string of praises made Xiao Mu blush slightly. If De Yuan hadn't cheated her and forced her to cultivate in seclusion for so long, who knew what realm she would still be lingering in. Although the rapid cultivation talisman was quite a cheat, it was extremely beneficial for the path of cultivation. From this, it seemed that not all talismans were unacceptable in the world. Moreover, some special talismans would only become more and more crooked in the hands of evil people. Arbor closed her eyes and waited for Qiuqiu to integrate Long Chuyun's secret inheritance realm into her Dantian star domain. This process was a little longer than transforming Paradise Planet, but compared to the pain of fusing with Paradise Planet for the first time, it was still bearable. An hour later, Long Chuyun's land of inheritance merged with her star domain. A tiny star that was originally beside Paradise Planet suddenly lit up. Arbor looked inside his dantian. His eyes were filled with spiritual energy, and he suddenly entered the small star. Long Chuyun's land of inheritance did not change at all. The 3 thatched huts looked somewhat lonely on the vast planet. There was only a small row of trees in front of the door. After the entire secret realm merged with the star field, it had expanded more than 3 times its original size and was filled with dense profound energy. Arbor retracted his gaze and looked at Paradise Planet. When he saw it, he couldn't help but be shocked. The entire Paradise Planet, after being partially transformed by the forest mystic realm, had now become so exquisite and beautiful. The peach forest was fluttering in the wind, and the lake was gurgling. Behind the peach slope was a clear cold pool, and beside the pool was a small house. In front of the door was a pile of rugged rocks. Outside the peach forest, several storehouses had been built to store supplies. Currently, she had 3 granaries, 2 vegetable storehouses, and 1 meat and poultry storehouse. The previous peach storehouse had long been filled. Another one had been rebuilt, and it looked like it was going to be piled up on the wooden beam again. Chiu had built 2 storehouses for medicinal ingredients, and the first storehouse was also almost full. Chapter 1330. The 100 Herb Garden encompassed 50 mu of medicinal land on Paradise Planet. Chiu had named this herb garden after it. Outside the herb garden was another 100 Poison Valley, which was filled with poisonous flowers and herbs. Xiao Xiao, the poison-tailed butterfly queen, led a flock of little butterflies to wander about inside. It was quiet behind the peach garden slope. The newly built maple pavilion that Chiu had built for her was standing on the slope. It had even planted the longevity tree and that mutated peach tree over there. The 2 trees were in full bloom, and the slope was quiet and secluded. Arbor's mind stirred, and she tossed a large batch of elementary herbs into Paradise Planet from her storage talisman. She had Chiu build a random elementary herb storehouse and pile it up. With Chiu's control over the wood spirit, it didn't take much effort to build an elementary herb storehouse out of wood. It was done in a few breaths. It also built an empty storehouse for her while it was at it. It said with a chuckle, "Why don't you move all the messy supplies in the 2 carriages in front of the door into this storehouse?" Arbor nodded. She remembered that the supplies in the 2 carriages were things that she had hurriedly asked second uncle to get for her in the beginning. There were all kinds of fruits, meat, vegetables, and seasonings inside. Apart from that, there was also second uncle's wine, some basic medicine, gauze, and so on. In the future, you can use this carriage whenever you want. Remember to find a few more horses to put in. I've already taken a good look at the terrain. I'll build you a farm in front of the magnetite mine. What do you think? Make it a little further away. That's for sure. We can't let these 4-legged beasts ruin the Paradise Planet that we worked so hard to build, Chiu said cheerfully. Chiu chuckled merrily. I'll enclose them and make a large farm so that they won't wander around. If by any chance some blind cow or pig jumped out and trampled on their 100 herb garden, then Chiu would die of heartache. Arbor was in a good mood. She had a goal in the future, and she had to find more animals that hadn't mutated to take in. That way, she wouldn't have to worry about cutting off the supply of meat and poultry for a long time. Now, her Paradise Planet was truly thriving, and she had everything she needed. To put it bluntly, even if the entire Seacombe planet were to explode and be destroyed, she could hide in Paradise Planet with her friends and family and live out the rest of her life peacefully. Of course, this was the worst-case scenario. She didn't want that to happen. She still hoped that the lives of the people outside would get better day by day. Before the next night cupboard made a move, eliminating it as the source would probably bring a ray of light to this gloomy world. Withdrawing her inner sight, she turned her gaze to Mo Lien, who was staring at her. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "Lien, when we're done here, let's go to Paradise Planet and take a look. It's so beautiful now." "All right." Chiu, did second uncle finish planting all the seeds that he collected earlier? Xiao Mu turned her head to look at the little tray ant that was clambering up her shoulder. Yes. Look, now the medicinal field has expanded to 50 mu, compared to 30 mu before. I planted everything I could. Isn't it great? It's really great. Arbor wasn't stingy with her praise. Qiuqiu knows the habits of plants like the back of his hand. He's really helped me a lot. Master, master, as long as you're happy. Qiuqiu shouted while dancing with joy. Besides, I don't have to waste any effort. I can just summon more Treant clones. Arbor raised her hand and stroked the 5 tender leaves on his head. Chapter 1331. And it's not just those seeds that second uncle gave me. There's also the seeds that City Lord Luge of Shuwang City gave me last time. They've basically all been planted. The little Treant swayed its leaves and called out softly, Master, Master, what else do you want Qiuqiu to plant? Arbor couldn't help but laugh. He wanted to say that there wasn't anything else to plant, but his mind suddenly moved. He raised his finger, and a seed appeared on his fingertip. He handed it to the Trent's branch. What seed is this? It looks like a spirit tea seed. When Mo Lien heard that, her eyelids suddenly twitched. She coughed lightly and said, Is it that seed that you picked up from the House of Treasures last time? It's that time when I picked up 5 million. Little sister gave it to me. Arbor nodded. Mo Lien, thought she suddenly wanted to laugh. This little guy was too funny. A random seed that he picked up was actually a spirit tea seed. What's a spirit tea seed? Is it useful? It's useful, it's useful. The little Treant Qiuqiu nodded furiously and said, Once this spirit tea tree is planted, you'll have spirit tea to drink when you enter the spirit realm in the future. Not only will it help you cultivate in the spirit realm, but most importantly, it can subtly improve the entire mystic domain. In other words, Master, if you plant this spirit tea tree, when the time comes, the entire paradise planet might evolve from the mystic domain to the spirit realm. Don't you think this change is big? No matter how ignorant Arbor was, he knew that the mystic domain only produced mystic energy, while the spirit realm could produce spirit energy. Naturally, they couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Qiuqiu, can you really grow this spirit tea tree? Qiuqiu patted his Trent's head. Of course, don't you know who I am? But if Little Earth wakes up, that'll be even better. With its sacred soil's nourishment, I guarantee that this spirit tea tree will grow into a small tree in 2 or 3 days. Now, he could only plant it first and let the great Qiuqiu speed it up to see if it could grow a seedling first. Ball. Arbor grabbed one of his Trent's claws. Thank you for your hard work. Qiuqiu looked excited and intoxicated. Wow, little master keeps praising Qiuqiu. Qiuqiu is so happy that I'm about to fly. Remember to do a good job. Arbor flicked him. Are Xiao Shui and the others awake? No. Qiuqiu shook its head. As soon as he raised his head, he saw a behemoth-like gorilla following behind Qing Wan. His pair of bean-like eyes immediately became round. Wow, master, who is this baboon? Master. Qing Wan transformed into a little chick and rushed towards her. Oh, while you were away, I even picked up a giant ape and an egg. Little Tree was speechless. Shock, shock, shock. It had only been a few short months since he last saw his master. Why had there been a few more strange people by his master's side? They were all here to fight for Qiuqiu's favor. Ow ow ow. Qiuqiu, don't howl like a wolf. Arbor patted his Trent's head. Bring Qing Wan and the others back to Paradise Planet first. Qiuqiu responded reluctantly and stared at the giant ape. It wants to go in too. Bring it to Senior Xian Ji's small house. The giant ape clearly understood, and Little Black's eyes lit up slightly. Arbor glanced sideways at Qiuqiu. Qiuqiu, let me ask you something. Didn't you mention black spirit jade to me before? You should have some on you. Chapter 1332. Wuxia immediately extended 2 small tree branches and repeatedly waved its hands. No, Wuxia doesn't have anything. When Arbor saw its guilty look, she knew that something was amiss. She pulled a taut face and tried her best to make her lips curl into a smile. She stepped forward and hooked one of Wuxia's tree branches. Wuxia, ah. Master is telling you. Master only needs 997 pieces of black spirit jade. The rest is all yours. The sapling looked at her with a stupefied expression. Why the hell did these words sound so strange? If it didn't hand them over, not only would the rest belong to it, all of it would belong to it. No. Master, Wuxia is very poor. Wuxia flipped its 2 small tree branches over to express its helplessness and poverty. On the side, Mo Lien couldn't help but laugh when she saw this interaction between the adult and child. Wuxia, I'm not asking you to hand over the black spirit jade now. I just want you to do me a small favor. Lend the black spirit jade to Master for a while. When we find the black spirit jade mine, I'll give it all to you. But what if we can't find it? Wuxia quivered and repeatedly shook its head. Master, I only have a little over 100 pieces of black spirit jade. They are all used to replenish and save lives at critical moments. Wuxia. The sapling widened its small black eyes. It suddenly turned around and pointed its tree butt at her. I am leaving, Master. I just remembered that I need to go in and regulate my breathing. Only then can I stabilize my realm. Goodbye, Master. Then, without another word, it pulled Qinghuan, the little fat squirrel, and the large ape back to Paradise Planet. Leaving behind a helpless Arbor, she shook her head and said, Egg, I've already tried my best. Looks like you still have to find the black spirit jade yourself. Master, why don't you also let me go to that whatever Paradise Planet? I sensed a very dense mystic energy on that Traiant. Arbor thought that it made sense. The dense mystic energy on Paradise Planet would also help the phoenix egg hatch. Why don't I refine 2 mystic gathering pills for you to help you hatch? Egg. Master, do you think I can eat pills in my current state? That's right. Arbor coughed lightly and immediately changed the topic, calling out to Wuxia, drag the egg to Paradise Planet. After everything was settled, Arbor simply turned off the chattering of the little ones on Paradise Planet. He looked up at Mo Lien and tilted his head. Sorry to keep you waiting. Not long at all. Mo Lien reached out and pinched her little nose. She leaned closer and whispered, I'm really curious now. I wonder what Paradise Planet has become. When Arbor thought of that beautiful mystic domain, his little face couldn't help but relax. He leaned closer to Mo Lien and said, It's beautiful. Cough. An untimely cough came from beside the 2 of them. When they looked back, they saw that Guy Duanyu had unknowingly squatted beside them. He also lowered his voice and asked curiously, What Paradise Planet? Arbor patted his head and said, I'll take you there when I have the chance. Duanyu. Mo Lien held back his belly full of laughter as he pulled Xiaomu to her feet. On the other end, he heard a teammate shout, Found it, found it. Everyone, quickly come over. Everyone cheered and ran over in high spirits. Sure enough, Jiaozhong Base's underground storehouse was right below the tunnel. Brother Axe led a few people to dig up the storehouse. It was as big as 2 small plazas. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1333. Everyone let out, wow, wow, sounds one after another. Their eyebrows and mouths were all full of smiles. This trip was truly worth it. Not only did they clear out the majority of the zombies in Jiaozhong Base, but they also reaped such a bountiful harvest. The underground storehouse was basically filled with stored grain. Fruits and vegetables were very scarce because they were difficult to store. There were some basic medicines, but not a lot. Upon seeing this, Arbor glanced at Mo Yen. Bring all of this back to the Mo Kingdom capital. 2 months' worth of stored grain will be enough. With so much food stored up, Lord Song of the Ministry of Revenue would probably cry a lot again. Ah, but there's so much. Even if we fill up all of our inner worlds, we won't be able to bring it back. We'd better use carriages to escort it back, a female mystic cultivator said worriedly. Brother Axe nodded. That's right. How about we take a stroll around the city and see if we can get a few carriages? Forget it. The zombies probably tore apart all of the living creatures in the city. Where are we going to find horses? With our Jojo here, this bit of supplies is nothing. Liang Qingqing laughed heartily and hugged Arbor's shoulders. She patted her and said, "Come on, Jojo, throw out the storage talismans." Arbor couldn't help but find it amusing. She looked up at everyone and said, "Go and fetch some grain." Brother Axe stuttered, but we were paid for this trip. This. What a blockhead. Hurry and go pack. It's fine if everyone packs 100 or 200 caddies. Consider it an extra reward. Everyone performed well this time. Duan Yu waved his hand, dismissing the jubilant team members to pack the grain. Most importantly, the team members were very obedient and didn't show any idiots. They worked together to complete a beautiful mission with 0 casualties, so Arbor was actually very pleased. On the other hand, the 4 superhumans in the team were a bit embarrassed. After joining the team this time, they actually didn't contribute much and even received everyone's protection and care. It was simply too comfortable to follow this kind of team. Arbor's group, Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing, and the others gathered together and exchanged a few words. It was only after the team members happily finished packing and returned that Xiao Mu flung out several dozen storage talismans, storing everything in the storehouse and handing it all to Mo Yen. Minister Song must be overjoyed. Mo Yen shook her head in amusement. So many bad things have happened, so just let him be happy. Xiao Mu looked up at the sky aloofly. It seems like it's going to rain soon, a female mystic cultivator said softly. A string in Xiao Mu's brain seemed to have been pulled taut in an instant, stretching taut with a bang. Rain. It's raining. Mo Lien and Duan Yu also shouted in unison. The 3 of them looked at each other and understood that they were thinking the same thing. This is indeed a good idea. TSK. Eldest Qin clapped the fan in his hand and nodded as he muttered to himself. Situ Yi, who was standing at the side, also understood. His eyes widened in shock. Is that really the case? Hey. You guys, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Liang Qingqing poked Situ Yi and looked at them in bewilderment. Someone injected zombie poison into Jiaozhong base. You mean, these zombies didn't appear by chance? But man-made? Chapter 1334. Eldest Qin's eyes flashed, and he couldn't help but laugh. You didn't just find out, did you? Liang Qingqing was momentarily at a loss for words. After a few seconds, she nodded, that's right, I just found out. She really wanted to burst into tears. Everyone was smart, but she was so stupid. Everyone couldn't help but laugh as they glanced at her. Junior sister Liang, we're talking about why Jiaozhong base's water source was destroyed. That's because someone secretly took advantage of the rain to throw corpse poison down from the sky and mix it with the rain, Situ Yi explained. So that's how it is. Liang Qingqing looked like she'd come to a sudden realization. She abruptly turned to Mo Lien and asked, Your Highness Crown Prince, then won't the other fortifications also be invaded like this? If there's a first, there'll be a second. Mo Lien coldly said, right now, the most important thing is to pass down the order that it's best to put up a protective barrier over all the water bodies. This would definitely require a lot of effort. Some poor fortifications might not have large defensive mystic artifacts or the like. Right. Liang Qingqing nodded like a chick pecking at rice, especially those pawns in the city. They're the easiest to manage. First, control them. It doesn't seem like there's any use just having people standing guard over there. We need to add a protective barrier. Or maybe build a roof or something. I can provide some protective talisman arrays. They can last longer than a protective barrier. Currently, they can last about half a month, Arbor said with a nod. Junior sister, then I'll have to trouble you too much. Liang Qingqing nodded gratefully. This was for the sake of all the common people in the Mo kingdom. Liang Qingqing simply couldn't imagine what kind of hell this world would become if they completely lost every clean water source. That definitely won't happen, Arbor said with a resolute expression. She'd already experienced it once. The water source had turned into filth, and many people had died of thirst after losing their water source. This kind of death was extremely despairing. Protect the water source. Everyone clenched their fists and roared with high fighting spirit. Protect the water source. Eldest Qin chuckled as he looked at everyone. All right, we've rested enough. Did you guys feel it? After the previous 2 earthquakes, many corpse puppets rushed here. Although there aren't as many as before, there are at least hundreds and thousands of them. Then let's fight. Everyone was in high spirits. Let's go up first. Everyone nodded. Just as they walked up from the underground warehouse, they bumped into more than 10 members from Rice City. When they saw the people from Arbor, their expressions changed slightly. They quickly ran over and looked at the underground warehouse. Soon after, a few of the valiant members among them started cursing, "Fuck you. They didn't even leave us a single grain of rice. Isn't this too immoral? Of our 200 members, only a dozen are left. In the end, we didn't even get a single grain of rice. How are we going to hand in the quest when we get back?" This mission to clean up and collect supplies at Jiaozhong base had actually caused 90% of them to lose their lives. The rest didn't even get a single hair. How could they accept this? Eldest Qin's eyes flashed, and he laughed mockingly. Who told you to be short-handed? Who can you blame? You guys. Callie was just about to step forward when she was pulled back by the leader of Rice City's operation team. The leader was in his 30s and wore a suit of green armor. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.